Watch the following video.
I grew up in a family, just enjoyed everything, so I just felt that I was Hebrew. One day, a woman came to my door, very Jewish. How is that possible? It's never happened. And said, "Do you know you could live forever?" So I looked at her and I said, "Oh, no. And that's when she said, "Well, Jehovah." I said, Yud Hey Vav Hey. There were no vowel points. I couldn't pronounce it, but I knew Yeshua Mashiach. Mashiach, I know, means, Yeshua. And she said, "Well, that was Jesus." And then she gave me a list of Jesus. And then the clincher was, of course, she gave me a Jehovah list. So it answered the question. It can't be an accident. I, insignificant me, can die. I mean, that's special. So I decided die. Look I'm so worn out now. I'm 93 years old, I'm 59 years healthy, and I can still cook chicken soup with matzo balls. What can I tell you? I absolutely love matzo balls. As long as I have matzo balls and me, I'm gonna shit.
Hey everybody, my name is Jake, former Jehovah's Witness, current late to the live streamer, and procrastinator generally speaking. Thank you for joining the stream. If you've never joined before, this is a live stream where we hang out and react to the cult propaganda of my former religion, Jehovah's Witnesses, and maybe we talk about other cults and high control groups sometimes too. I don't know, kind of depends. Today is a day that I really I'm just going to admit right up top, and this isn't a great sales pitch, but I really did not put a lot of thought or effort into this. I know that's unique for live streamers, but what I want to do today is kind of talk about some cool stuff on Reddit, talk about a cringy new morning worship. Maybe we can talk about the Linkin Park person being a Scientologist, maybe, and some videos that I've been watching lately that have been making me think about Jehovah's Witness stuff. So that is what's on the docket. Sorry I'm late. I realized I didn't actually make an intro, but I had this old dumb edit that I never rendered or uploaded, and it was that. So I went ahead and just rendered that. I don't really know what that was. That was originally going to be part of maybe the second part of the Awkward Silence Supercut convention, but I don't know if that's ever going to really happen. So there you go. That's an edit. That's a thing. So thanks for hanging out. We've got some good peeps here in the chat, some old standbys. We've got Sheol Society, Bear Woody, the Villain of the Year, Jenny B, Sean, Karen Booth. We've got all kinds of lovely people. So thank you. I had it where the mustache hair was a little bit longer than the beard hair, and then it all kind of was the same size. That's not length. I don't know. So I'm trying to get that sorted out. While people are filtering in, I'll tell you why I didn't prepare too much, was that Christina and I went on a fun trip this weekend. We haven't been out of town in a really long time, probably like a year. We got to go see Vampire Weekend, which was super fun, and take Peach with us. So that was her first road trip too. And it was in Cuyahoga Falls, which is a really nice part of Ohio. There's a lot of national parks, so we got to take her on some nice walks. It was great. We had a great time. But as a result of that, I didn't really do too much. In fact, I didn't even put any hair product in my hair. So folks, this is me out of the shower. No bullshit. It literally just dried like this. You will see it. Part of the fun of today's show will be seeing it slowly deflate over the course of the broadcast. My hair will just get flatter until it's just a big, frankly, like a matzo ball on my head. So the intention was there is there's this edit by a YouTube poop creator called Very Tall Bart. I think it's the Seinfeld one, and he does a thing with matzo balls, the Bryan Cranston character saying matzo balls a bunch of times in a row. And so I was going to sync it up with that, and I just never did. Why did we take Peach? Well, because it's expensive to kennel her, and we don't have a lot of people that can take care of a dog. Plus, the concert, we were in like a pet-friendly hotel, so we didn't have to leave her alone for too long. There were lots of like fun nature trails, so it was great. She did really good. Let's get to some stuff. Wait a minute. I want to show off something important. This actually isn't important at all, but wait, let's see if I can do this. No, you know what? I'll save that for later. I've got some doodles. I've got some new doodles I want to show off. Okay, well, let's look at exJW Reddit. I wanted to talk about this because somebody on the exJW Reddit kind of suggested recently that exJW content creators should cover like stuff from the subreddit. I had been thinking about doing that for a while, like doing short, like little Joel-esque videos, because a lot of times the posts on the exJW subreddit, I don't comment as much as I used to, like when I was Pimo, but I still am on that subreddit every day. Like I'll scroll through and see stuff, and those posts always make me think. There's always really good stuff. And so I figured we can kind of go through some of the top-rated posts from this month, some of which, you know, might be full of crap. I don't know. We'll see. A pasta balls is very good. I also meant to mute my microphone, and it just straight up didn't work. So sorry about that. I still need to make a drinking water pause sound drop. Here, I'm just going to check one thing real quick. Check 1, 2. Is this the Conspiracy Corner sound drop? I had to remove it because it was glitching.
Welcome, Internet. I'm so happy to share with you this conspiracy theory.
Okay, good. So that still works. Unfortunately, it's not the new one with the wavy ghost text that I made for one of my more recent videos. So I gotta get my shit together. And I apologize right up top, but as regular viewers know, the first few minutes of this broadcast are usually unwatchable rambling. All right, well, let's see. I want to see what the top posts were this month. Well, look at this. This looks like a good one. I want to see... there's a couple of posts that I specifically wanted to talk about, but this seems like a good one. Like a little bit of actual good news. Because some of us here in chat who were ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, we had to like preach the good news, but the good news was that Armageddon was coming and wouldn't kill us personally, probably, if we were good and didn't sin too much. And, you know, we're really, really active at the exact moment of death and never let our faith waver in Jehovah God Almighty, Father of Jesus Christ, our Lord. It's a confusing hierarchy. Okay, I don't know why I'm making this suspenseful. So this is from user Darker Than the Night, which is a very exciting username. After being Pimo for over 5 years, living at home, going to college, and being forced to keep it a secret, I finally graduated with my degree in engineering and moved out this summer. And yesterday I told my family I'm no longer going to meetings or service. This has been the hardest thing I've ever done. For all you Pimos, it's okay if it takes you a long time to form your escape plan. I know a lot of people on here make comments to just leave immediately, but it's not realistic. Each journey is different, and I'm personally glad I was patient while I made my way out. Love it. Love this post. Okay, so this person has been Pimo for 5 years, living at home and going to college. Now, I don't know if they're saying that they had to keep the college part a secret or just the Pimo part a secret, but I really like this because, you know, being Pimo is hard, and it's true what this person said. Like, there's a lot of comments and posts about, like, you know, if all the Pimos would just stand up and leave immediately, it would destroy this organization. And first of all, we have actually no evidence that that's true. Like, we don't know how many Pimos there are. When you specifically woke up from your home congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, was there, like, secretly a group of 5 or 6 other PMOs in your hall? Like, maybe, but probably not. That's pretty rare, let alone enough to take down a whole congregation, right? So, like, this idea that if all the PMOs left at once, I mean, we just don't know how many that is, to be honest. And I generally just don't like people giving hard and fast advice on what people ought to do. The only thing you should do is whatever the hell you want, because you're leaving a cult where choice has been stripped away from you your entire life. And I think it's good to take this approach of like, our journeys are different. This is what I need to do for this person being patient, worked out. And I love to see it. That's great. Let's see. This person's posted their letter of resignation. So, oh boy, it's a long one. I don't know if we're going to go through all of it. Maybe we can skim through it. But I always like seeing these. Now, my favorite thing, and hopefully we can get to this, but my favorite thing that people post on the exJW subreddit is like their screenshots of text correspondence that they've had with witnesses, like witnesses trying to be like, come back to Jehovah. I really like seeing people's, like, this is the last time I texted my dad. I don't know. It's like dramatic, but in a way that I really like. It's very human. We've all had moments like that. And sometimes it's a good reminder of like, I don't know, for me, it's easy to forget what interactions with my witness family were like when it was at its peak. And it's easy to pine for the days when things were normal, but things can't really be normal unless you, the exJW, apostate, whatever, like unless you're willing to conform to all of their rules and expectations, well, you can't really have that same relationship. Okay, so right off the bat, this one's cool because so this is an English version of their German thingy, but they distributed this last week via their WhatsApp status. Over 150 people have seen it. So, WhatsApp status. I didn't know you could have a status on WhatsApp. I don't use it that much, but a lot of witnesses are in group chats, and I love the idea of posting your letter of resignation in a group chat. I think what I wish that I would have done this. I'll make it about me later. Let's talk about this thing first. All right, dear elders, we are making this public statement because certain circumstances among Jehovah's Witnesses have become unacceptable to us. Even if our family has fortunately not yet been affected by it, child abuse is more than just a serious wrongdoing or a spiritual sickness. It cannot simply be repented of and handled by talking to elders who have no psychological training whatsoever. Pedophilia is a serious mental disorder. The main issue is not whether the perpetrator can be forgiven or not, but whether further cases can be prevented. This is really good. It is unacceptable for the protection of offenders to take precedence over the protection of victims and for the, quote, privacy of a potential offender to outweigh the welfare of children. In such cases, elders must not be primarily concerned with maintaining the sanctity of God's name, as if he could not do that himself. Oh, instead, they should attend to their duties for the good of the flock. The responsibility to protect the children from harm cannot simply be shifted to the parents alone. With references. I didn't even mention this if you're just listening, but there are like parentheticals with scriptural references, the way Watchtower does, and even a reference to a watchtower here at the end. So this is really good. I think, I don't know if we need to actually read this entire thing, but generally speaking, you know, people are going to stop reading pretty quickly into any disassociation letter. It's almost like don't touch the stove, I think, the way elders handle it. It's like, all right, just read enough to understand that they're disassociating, but you don't got to read the whole thing. And certainly witnesses are encouraged to, like, turn off the TV as soon as you sense that something apostate is coming on. So I think it can be hard to figure out what exactly you want to say to everybody. And this is really good. Here's what I like about this. It starts off by saying, like, circumstances among Jehovah's Witnesses have become unacceptable to us. I like this because it's not like you are the problem or like you specifically are enabling pedophilia, whatever, because that's all witnesses are going to interpret any kind of criticism, let alone a disassociation letter, as a personal attack because it's their entire identity, right? So I think making it into like, this is what's unacceptable to me is really good. And I also, like, even if our family has not been affected by this yet, child abuse is more than just serious wrongdoing. I like this because I experienced this as somebody who just, like, when I started mentioning the CSA stuff, I had my family and the elders, whoever I would mention this to, be like, were you abused or something? Like, why are you so, like, why do you care about this so much? I really had people ask me that, which of course is absurd. And so I think it's smart to preempt that by saying, like, listen, no, this has not affected our family, but that shouldn't matter, right? exJW really got ruined after Watchtower infiltrated it. Explain yourself, Sean. I don't know what that means. So they detail Australian Royal Commission stuff. They get into governing body things. Let's see what they say about the governing body. The governing body subsequently refused to publicly apologize to the victims and to pay into the Australian National Redress Scheme for victims of abuse, while over 500 organizations had already contributed this fund. 6 were publicly reprimanded by the Australian government for refusing to do so, including Jehovah's Witnesses. It was only when the government threatened to withdraw their charitable status that the organization relented. I like this. They say that Jeffrey Jackson, like, he testified at this Royal Commission, but the governing body has never mentioned this in their broadcasts or on the news section of their website, so witnesses don't know about it. I like this. Oh. They go into some scriptural things that they disagree with. Interesting. And it ends, let's see how they end this. We want our children to grow up in an environment where the focus is not on terms such as Armageddon, Gog of Magog, Babylon the Great, overlapping generations, governing body, or years, but on love. Ooh. We believe that unconditional love should be the essence of every family and every Christian. We want our children to be able to talk about their personal faith and doubts at any time without making themselves suspicious or being afraid of being ostracized by their family. Our experiences in recent years have shown us this is not possible with Jehovah's Witnesses. We therefore hereby declare that we no longer wish to be known as Jehovah's Witnesses. We asked for a written confirmation. Nice. I like that they're demanding a written confirmation to, like, at least confirm that the elders have read it. Very good. And they also are like, give us a written confirmation. To me, that implies don't bother calling. So that's good. Okay, this is the one that I actually wanted to read because this, I don't know, gave me a stress dream. I couldn't think of a stress-related thing. Stress? Headache? I guess it didn't stress me out that much, and I was lying. I'm sorry. But this is by Royal External. Oh, wait, did I not say the name of the last person? That was from Childhood David 24. This is from Royal External 2040. Sister in the Kingdom Hall tried to make me comment. I was at a Kingdom Hall sitting behind a sister I somewhat know. She slid her tablet between the chairs to show me a note saying, "Can you make a comment for Jehovah today, please?" Fucking hell. I hadn't commented since before quarantine, so I just shrugged. A minute later, she slid her tablet again with a comment ready on paragraph 4, asking me to highlight it on my phone. I did, but when she asked if I'd comment, I literally just shook my head. She kept asking, and I refused, and I kept refusing the look on her face when I kept shaking my head. It was priceless. It was like she got mad at me. Skull emoji. I was thinking about commenting, but I wanted to keep my 3-year streak. Love it. Well, this is how sobriety works. You know, think about the progress you've made. Think about your progress and your lack of spiritual progress. You wouldn't want to ruin all that. This is what a nightmare. The idea that somebody would take it upon themselves, because this sister thought that they were being loving, probably. Like, I'm encouraging them to comment. Yeah, it's the policies that are conditioning this abuse, says Trouble in Paradise. I totally agree. This is completely normalized behavior. I think that, like, okay, old sister so-and-so who's doing this. Actually, it doesn't even say old sister so-and-so. I just imagine. It just said sister. So that's my bad. It just seemed like something like a mature Christian, to use their words, would be like, I'm a mature Christian, and that means I get to throw my weight around and make people who are younger than me do stuff. I don't know. That's what a lot of older Jehovah's Witnesses are like. But no, you know what? This could happen to anyone. I hate this. I hate, can you make a comment for Jehovah today, please? For Jehovah. Jehovah would love it if you raised your hand and quoted, but kind of rephrased something that was in a paragraph we just read. Good God. All right. What do we think? Are we enjoying this? Your parents would do that? See, well, this is the thing. Like, okay, if it's your parents and you're their kid, I understand the dynamic of why they would do that. I don't understand why somebody who isn't your fleshly family, I don't understand why they would do that. Like, that's so presumptuous. Wouldn't, within the JW structure, wouldn't it be like, after the meeting, you're like, hey, you know, I don't mean anything by this, but if you ever need like help commenting or anything, I could help you out. Just wanted to throw that out there. Like, wouldn't that be the right way to do it, JW-wise? I don't know. That's so strange. I know. Wait, Sean, I didn't understand what you meant by this. I feel like I never got a follow-up. Gross entitled behavior. I totally agree. Make a comment for Jehovah. Gross. All right. This is 26 days ago. All right. So this is They Are Getting Desperate by LLG 626. Ulg. This is by Ulg. So about a year and a half ago, the service overseer pulled me aside with one of the other elders and told me he was stripping me of all my privileges. This was amazing to me since I had just woken up around this time. Oh, incredible. It was divine direction. He said I had low field service time. I wasn't commenting, and I needed to attend more meetings in person. I could care less. I pretty much stopped going into field service. He texted me the other day asking if I'm ready to take on some privileges since I have some really good qualities. I just can't believe how ass backwards these people are every day. So I think what this person's saying is like they haven't actually changed their behavior at all, but they're desperate enough that they're like, hey, could you carry some mics or something because you do have good qualities. It's interesting. I mean, this seems par for the course in terms of like posts that we're seeing of like the elders just asked me to do something even though I'm not regular in the field ministry because I'm PMO, blah, blah, blah. It does seem like they're getting desperate. There was the elders letter recently that changed, well, maybe it didn't change anything specifically, but it was like, okay, somebody as young as, what, 20 could be an elder? What? Maybe we should find it. It's probably, I'm sure like Larchington posted about it, but I'm sure chat will correct me. Let's see. I want to see if any other people jump in with similar stories. Okay, this looks good. So someone said, good to hear. Thanks for sharing. What's fun is he'd rather die than letting a woman carry mics / run sound, which unfortunately is true. And then that was by Mammoth Term. And then old Shake and Bake 420, my kind of person, says, I have a fun story about this from years ago. I was working at Kingdom Hall remodel, and this girl was doing it occurs to me I could be doing funny voices, but I don't want it to come across like I'm making fun of the exJWs. I tend to say voices for making fun of shit, but that's not necessarily the case. We can use funny voices for all kinds of occasions. Good God. I'm so sorry. I'm just going to read this comment. So, I was working at Kingdom Hall remodel, and this girl was doing the installation and asked if I could help her for a second. Sure thing. Elder comes over and starts talking to me like I'm in charge, saying I need to have her do XYZ. The look on his face when I explained to him I don't know shit about installation and she's the one in charge was priceless. Happened again when they needed someone to set up some cameras, computers, and sound equipment. I know my way around computers, but what I'm not is a professional by any means. They asked me to do it and said they'd give me an assistant to supervise the assistant. She had a degree for whatever it was, and this kind of stuff was her entire career. She was beyond qualified. and here, like, my 22-year-old ass is being told to direct her. The second they walked away, I told her she was in charge, and I would just be helping her because I had no business telling her what to do. This is something... Well, so, first of all, big shout-out to Shaked and Baked 420, because I don't know that I would have had the confidence to do that. Like, I would have agreed, I would have agreed that that's the right thing to do, but I don't know that I would have had the courage to stand up to the Watchtower rules. So, more like Shaked and Based, in my opinion. Ooh, this is nice. All right, then I want to get into some dirt. I want to see some screenshots of texts. But this is nice. I love seeing stuff like this. This is by Obvious Inevitable 84. The tag is fucking happy for life, which is... I love it. Me too. It's been almost 2 years since I woke up, and this weekend was the most peaceful of my life. I felt safe for the first time in my life. I'm so proud of him. We stopped meetings a year ago. He ran through Crisis of Conscience in 2 days and is watching the ARC video now. I'm so happy. That's the Australian Royal Commission, if you're wondering. I'm so happy that I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, but I'm enjoying it. Any advice or suggestions welcome. Edit. He calls the Borg a cult now. Edit 2. He did an AMA request as requested. Hell yeah. Well, let's check this out. I just woke up AMA. Oh, nice. Okay. Let's look at this. So, hey all. My first post here. My wife, Obvious Inevitable, has been out for a couple years now. And I have been physically out for about a year, but still on the fence mentally. That is until last week when my wife suggested I listen to Crisis of Conscience on Spotify. Now, is this the janky version that's just like a person reading it? That's not even a dig necessarily, because when I was waking up, I listened to some of that, but it was like, it wasn't on Spotify at the time, and he was on YouTube, or I found some old, like, download link on the exJW subreddit, but it was just some guy reading it, and it wasn't even every chapter, like, it wasn't even the full thing. So that's cool. If there's an easy way to listen to it, that's great. But anyway, so this is the husband that woke up. Let's see. They were reading or listening to Crisis of Conscience. Wow, that book has so much indisputable evidence of corruption. I would be surprised if any current JW legitimately read the entire thing, that they would be able to still believe they were part of God's one true organization. Yeah, agreed. Okay, let's see what questions they asked. As a POMA with a PME spouse, what is something I can do to help stir their waking up process? They refuse to have any spiritual conversations with me, but I am indisputably a better partner in every other way since I woke up, even they admit to this. And we have a child. Nice. This is a good question. This is similar to where me and Christina were at for a while when I woke up, a little bit before her. We just kind of decided not to talk about spiritual stuff, for the peace of the marriage, and it was good. But I did feel like it made me a better spouse overall, like getting rid of that. Even though, like, we never took the headship thing seriously, it was definitely still in my brain a little bit, which I didn't really appreciate until I had to deconstruct it. And so I felt like I was becoming a better spouse. I guess I'm just saying I understand this frustration of this commenter. And let's see here. Huge quit. Oh, I guess so this is the husband who woke up. He answered, I think I might be a little bit of a special case. My mom has always been hardcore PME, but my dad has mostly been PMQ, so questioning. And that is because he was a victim of CSA from an elder's son. Not only that, but when he confronted the people involved years later, they doubled down and hardcore protected the abuser. So because of that, my father has always taught me to be cautious, even with fellow JWs. Then, whenever my wife left a couple years ago, it really got me thinking because she is very smart and had always been a very spiritual person. I've taken the last year and have mostly been going POME and trying to separate myself so I can figure out what I actually feel instead of just going because I was told that I should go. Mostly by my mother. Okay, interesting. I think that anybody, by the way, can probably wake up in the correct circumstances. But I do think the person has to be in a position where they're willing to do that, right? Like, I think you probably could show, and probably governing body members have read at least parts of Crisis of Conscience, right? I mean, suspiciously, they keep on stumbling across new light that coincides with suggestions Ray Franz made a dozen years ago. So it kind of seems like they've read it, probably for their own self-protection they did. And yet no other governing body members have left since that happened. So I don't know. I wonder. Okay, so this is a follow-up on this Warwick Pimo thing. Yeah, we need to check in on this Warwick Pimo situation. I have not been paying super close attention. So Sean says, Warwick Pimo, the real one, confirmed on the news interview that they are on the Reddit forums as well. Not sure if they are mods, but some posts get downvote bombed abruptly, depending on the subject. Well, that's not really different. It's always been like that, and not to, like, diminish what you're saying, but, like, yes, they are on, like, they monitor the subreddit to some degree. And there's always been witnesses that lurk and will troll. They'll come in sometimes and act as, ironically, like David Splain said in his anti-apostasy talk, they will pose as sincere individuals just asking questions and then kind of reveal themselves to be witnesses. But they also, like the Dark Spilver case, there was a Reddit user that got sued by Watchtower because of stuff they posted on Reddit, I believe. So I don't think that's that different. And really, I mean, I don't know. Based on what we can see, it doesn't seem like they actually change much of what they're doing or saying based on what Reddit is saying. So I don't know. I always kind of assume that they peep in, or not, not like David Splain personally, but the PID department may. I kind of assume that's what they do. I read this one. This is a good one. Sorry to get political, but blame Jezebel 101. Actually, don't do that. They seem cool. I'll take the heat on this one. But it was a top voted post of the month. The liberal media, r/exJW. Just met up with my very peemy mom at a coffee shop. She was telling me something about Trump said that Jimmy Kimmel made fun of. We talked about Trump for a while and how unbalanced Trump supporters are, and then she said, it's a cult, It took all my strength to not say something snide about the cult she is in. I just said, yes, I definitely know, upside down smiley face times 3. We were having a nice time for once, so I left it at that. Just had to share since I have no one else to tell about this, and it made me laugh because I'm done crying about it all. Based. Love it. One of my ex's regular shows with the Lay and Remedy Scientology series, she still couldn't see it. It's crazy. I remember my parents for a little while. So before I was caught, when I was just Pimo. When I was just Pimo, and I was having conversations with my parents, I would try and do some unwitnessing or spread my seed along the roadside, seeing if it took to find soil. And me and Christina recommended at some point, like, what was it? It was a Mormon documentary that had come out, but it wasn't necessarily even anti-Mormon. It was the one on that plagiarist. It was Murder Among the Mormons, that Netflix documentary. So we'd watched that and recommended it to them. And they were, like, hesitant to watch that because of that being negative about religions in general, which just told me, like, okay, a part of their brain is worried that if they watch a documentary on a group that they consider to be a false religion, that it will make them question. Very weird. Like, everybody's got such a weird little block in their head when they're a witness. Man, I think Stay Sweet and Obey would be a tough one to watch and stay a witness. It's really similar aesthetically, too. You should give her mom Hassan's book, The Cult of Trump. That would be good. I understand this thing of, like, the conversation was going well for once, because I've talked to my parents, I don't know, twice in the last couple weeks, which is more than I had for months and months before that. And it is one of those things where it's like, okay, when you actually get to have a peaceful conversation, you kind of don't want to jeopardize it by bringing up exJW stuff, So, speaking of which, I want to... Oh, okay, cool. This is one. I want to see a response from a Pimi before we switch gears. But this is reminding me that there's some Watchtower magazine craziness I wanted to jump into. Somebody's mentioning weed coffee, which is a great idea. Okay, wait, are they saying weed coffee or coffee weed? Here's something I did. I got some tablets from the dispensary near us, and I broke open the tablet and put it in coffee recently, and it was delicious. Did the trick. Tablets, by the way, underrated. Capsules, maybe I should say. Okay, so this is... Whoa! My final text to my parents. All right. So this is going to be intense. Holy shit, I can already see curse words. This is going to be good. I'm so disappointed in both of you. You guys have been told by a cult to throw away your only son, and you did exactly what you were told. I will be a better parent than y'all will ever be. Oh my god, already I'm getting a little fluttery. I've sent a message like this to my parents. Not even this strongly worded, though. So let's put some respect on level employee 4921's name for saying what a lot of people have wanted to say to their parents. You guys have been told by a cult to throw away your only son, and you did exactly what you were told. I will be a better parent than y'all will ever be. My son will never have to wonder if his daddy will be there for him in life. Not a single person on this planet will separate me from my family. Don't ever ask shit from me when you're old, because I won't be there for you. I won't even be there at your funeral. You two are miserable excuses for parents. If someone told you to jump off a fucking bridge, you would do it. You will regret all this time lost when you're older, and you will never get it back. By then, it will be too late, and I won't go there. Geo is the most important thing in my life. Sorry, maybe I should have blanked out the name. Well, he posted it. Geo is the most important thing in my life, and no one will ever separate us. I don't know how y'all can be so cold-hearted. If I had it my way, you both would never see my son, but I could never be as evil to you. Fuck you both and go to hell. So, damn. If that strikes anybody else as, like, over the top, then you've never been systematically shunned by religious zealots for parents. Like, there's some things in this that I probably wouldn't say to my mom and dad, but I've definitely thought all these things, you know. I think that is the most painful thing, is it's like you just did it because you were told to. This isn't your instinct. It's something that you were told to do, and you did it. Oh, okay. So this is something that was brought up, I think, on last week's stream, in the comment by Apostate Barbie, but this is from Allie Boggs? Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember this person from YouTube. So, okay, this isn't actually her sign, then. This is from somebody named Monica, who, like, put up a billboard. Hi, remember me, Monica Vellon? I lost my family to religiously mandated shunning. Please read my story and others at stopmandatedshunning.org. That's pretty cool. I've never been to stopmandatedshunning.org. Let's look at it, homies. Ooh. Okay. Join our global campaign to set legal precedents against mandated shunning as a violation of human rights and to expose the harm of organized ostracism. Ooh. Well, this is cool. I didn't know that this was a website. I feel ignorant. Wait, I recognize some of these people from around the exJW sphere. Hey, there's Jan Frude Nielsen. Well, don't I feel silly? Okay. Well, that's awesome. The billboard thing is a smart idea. It looks like it was posted in a small town, like, remember me, I graduated, you know, such and such a class. That's a smart idea. Act local. That's how you make changes. And I had a childhood friend message me a long message with "fuck you forever," but he didn't even ask if I was still in. Oh my god, like, this is a JW that said that? Yeah. A classic whiskey and coffee is way better. It makes you feel like a cowboy on the range. That is actually true. Wait, have I done whiskey and coffee? I've done an Irish coffee. I felt like an Irish cowboy. Out on the Irish range. I have no idea who they are anymore. Yeah, you know, I think, like, oh, yeah, good point. The billboard doesn't mention JW specifically. That is smart. It just says religiously mandated shunning. We were talking about this last week, I think, when we were looking at the protest stuff, the exJW DC protest thing, and how it makes sense to, make it broader than just Jehovah's Witnesses to get the ball rolling, because it is something that affects other religious communities. It also affects, like, just queer people in general who are shunned by their family because of their family's religious beliefs. There are gay and trans youth whose parents are like Christian evangelicals and might get kicked out of the house or ostracized or shunned or forced to go to conversion therapy. And those are all things that don't necessarily have anything to do with Jehovah's Witnesses, but fall under that umbrella of mandated religious shunning. So that's kind of smart. Chandler, it really was a JW who told you fuck you. I'm always surprised when witnesses will like comment on my channel and they'll comment curse words. Like, man, when I cursed on the internet as a JW, I didn't use my real name. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that, but I was a big message board user as a Jehovah's Witness, and it was sort of like an opportunity to cosplay as a worldly person. Did anybody else ever do that? I was on like gaming forums, so I was on the GameSpot forums for a long time. I was on the Nintendo Life forums for a long time, which I then ended up writing for Nintendo Life. But I was just on there as a fan first. So there's a few like gaming forums, a couple music forums for like bands I liked. And by the way, I think forums might come back. I think as like social media is becoming increasingly like fractured and algorithmically, like it's hard to kind of find what you want sometimes, like kind of specific fan communities like Reddit, I think will become more popular. Maybe that's why I like Reddit, is it just kind of feels like old message boards. Okay, I wanted to look at I think it's this terrible article. And if anybody remembers, if I already read this, please let me know, because I don't remember. I will go over sometimes like a new Watchtower when it comes out, months before the witnesses study it. And then by the time they do study it, I'll look at it again and I will have forgotten. So that's not great. But hey, I'm just being honest with you. Ooh, by the way, Facebook is fucking awful. Like, I used Facebook for Facebook groups for a while, like for a long time. I actually made some like really like, long-lasting connections with people just through like fan Facebook groups of stuff. I was in one for like comedy podcasts, not the kind of comedy podcasts that you might be thinking of. I didn't realize that I was in a different world of comedy podcasts till recently. I'm talking more like Comedy Bang Bang, the Earwolf brand of like improv silly comedy podcasts. Ooh. Whoa. Low. Okay, this is intense. And this is the kind of sharing that I'm known for on the channel, so I appreciate the spirit of this comment. Weird thing to say. I don't know. Sorry. I'm going to be apologizing a lot in general this episode. Not to make this a long story, but I got a tattoo for the first time in 15 years. First of all, awesome. Congratulations. The last one I got was a sewer slide note. Oh, I see what's happening. Including the tetragrammaton in a scripture asking God to forgive me. Holy shit, Lo. That's intense. I'm so glad they were able to get a new tattoo that represents where you are now. That old one, I don't know, are you thinking of like getting it covered, or do you want it to be there as a reminder? Interesting. Oh my god, yeah, okay. This is also a thing. We're in a total chat tangent right now, because we got some good ones. Hang on, I gotta set some of these aside. I wasn't allowed to say G's because it sounded like Jesus. Yeah, okay. That's This was definitely a thing. I was not allowed to say geez. Definitely wasn't allowed to say Jesus, which I did a lot in other contexts. We would slip at home sometimes. Jesus Christ, my dad would get very upset. He didn't like that. Hey, Christina.
Yeah.
Were you allowed to say, like, geez or Jesus?
We could say geez. My mom didn't like it, but she didn't make a big deal of it.
Okay.
But we could not say Jesus.
Okay, Christina also couldn't say Jesus. Could say geez. Mom didn't like it. Wouldn't make a big deal out of it. Oh, yeah, definitely couldn't say, oh my God.
No, couldn't say that.
Definitely not. Oh, yeah, lucky. Definitely a thing we couldn't say.
And that's just a colloquialism. It's not even like you're wishing good luck or whatever.
Yeah, Christina just said that's just like a colloquialism. It's not like...
You're being
Yeah, that was a difference in the Spanish congregation, I remember. It was very normal for people to be like, ay, Dios mío, like, ay, Dios, or ay, Jehová. Like, saying, oh my God, wasn't seen as sacrilegious. So even, that was just an interesting, like, cultural difference. Like, they would say that all the time. Whereas if I said that in English, they'd be like, oh my God, you're using the Lord's name in vain. It's like, no. I'm referencing God, the guy you claim to care so much about. Giving him free press, quite frankly. Okay, so this comment is from username in a different language. My family attended a JW service as a child around 7. Suffice to say, we did not go again because both my parents, separate, remember how incredibly boring it was. The witnesses never saw us again. Oh, wow. Okay, I love that. It's just like, nope, didn't have the magic first Kingdom Hall experience they talk about on the website. Just, it was boring. We never went back. We said things like frickin' and shoot. Same difference as swearing, really. Yeah, my grandma Pat, so this is my great grandmother, she's like, don't say what the heck, that just means hell. Darn just means damn, it's just a euphemism. Like, I learned the word euphemism from my great grandmother because she didn't like us saying anything even around that, which is really funny. We could say crap, and we said crap a lot, and my dad would substitute crap for, like, any other curse words. It would be like, what the crap, instead of what the fuck, which doesn't even really make sense, but I kind of like it, because you wouldn't say, like, what the shit, really. Okay, so I've had this on the screen for, like, 20 straight minutes. I don't remember if we went over this on stream before, but there's some real creepy shit, and I think we need to, frankly, do some silly voices, which I haven't been able to do in a while. First of all, I feel like my vocal register has been shitty. I feel like I've had like a cold the last couple times I've streamed. Apologize for saying dang as an exJW. Stinkin'. Yeah, stinkin's a huge one. We said stinkin' a lot. Freakin' and frickin' were, I would say, frowned upon in our house. Same for Christina. She was not allowed to say frickin'. I think I'm going to try and make sure, and I've not talked about this with my wife, so maybe I shouldn't go on record about this live, but I think I'm going to try and make sure that our children's first words are exclusively curse words, so that we can just demystify those. No, I don't ever want my children to say my name. I want them only to refer to me as father or I am.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Lord, because that would have been fun.
Lord would be great. I'd accept Lord. I'd respond to that. Mr. Lord, ideally. Oh, yes. Christina referencing how Sarah called Abraham her Lord. I remember my mom and, like, the women in my family making fun of that in a different time when they felt comfortable making little jokes about stuff. Okay. Do you recognize the truth? All right. So we're going to do a new segment now. I'm going to try and more consciously... God. So many things I'm going to try and do in future streams. That's a big part of the show, is figuring out how the next one will be better, and then probably forgetting about it at the time. But I think I want to do these streams in more concise segments so I could possibly break them up and edit them and upload them to the main channel. So I will take this opportunity to say, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Sunday service feed. I'm going to do a couple more streams, simulcast on Altworldly and Sunday service. But a lot of people don't know that there is a separate channel that has all the, well, not all the backlogs, but a lot of the backlogs of the streams. Most of the streams are privated on the main channel after they're done. So if you want to check out the backlogs, which I'm going to start uploading stuff that's not on there soon, because I got to clear out my cloud, the StreamYard cloud, before I switch to a new streaming platform. Anyway, now let us get into the Watching Tower. So this is one that is going to be studied by witnesses all over the world today. September 22nd, year of our Lord, 2024. Our personal Lord and best friend, by the way, Jesus Christ, who we don't talk about a ton, and I believe. So what I remember about this, I remember somebody posting about this in the exJW subreddit when this first came out. I believe it's this one. So let's do a quick Control F and try to find Jesus. Okay, yep. So there's no results. 0 times. Jesus is referenced 0 times in the article entitled, "Do You Recognize the Truth?" Now, famously, Jehovah's Witnesses released a smash hit. Millions were distributed, wedged inside people's doors all over the world. Jesus, the way, the truth, and the light. And yet, even though Jesus is the truth, not in this article so much. This time, he is the truth 0 times. Whereas, let's see, governing body. Okay, I don't see governing, so that's good. How about faithful and? Okay. How about slave? Faithful slave. No. All right. Watchtower. Well, that one obviously comes up because it's the name of the magazine. Jehovah, if you spell it right, is mentioned 48 times. So that's a lot. All right, interesting. Jesus. Like, if you were playing the Doug Loves Movie Leonard Maltin game, Jesus is not even on the IMDb credits list. It's not that he's second billed. He's in an uncredited role in this Watchtower. Do you recognize the truth? Stand firm with the belt of truth fastened around your waist. I really thought this said wrist the entire time. I've been looking at this off and on for the past 10 minutes. I've thought it said wrist all along. Like Agatha and whatever that show is. I haven't watched it yet. But no. Belt around your waist. Okay, so the focus. Focus up, everybody. Let's just... blinders on. Like horses, or slaves might have. Training ourselves to discern the difference between the truth... Wait. That's not how a Jehovah's Witness would read it. Let me try and get into a JW voice. Training ourselves to discern the difference... That was too fast. Training ourselves to discern the difference between the truth we have learned from Jehovah and the falsehoods promoted by Satan and our opposers. That was closer. What about apostate? No. Wow, so it's very vague. They don't use a lot of specific words. They don't use the word apostate. So opposers, though. And that's us. Congratulations if you're in chat. You're an opposer. An opposable thumb. All right. Well, I don't want to, read this whole thing front to back, obviously. I say that it's obvious, but I've actually done that before. So no, this is a promise, and I'm not going to do that. However, after we have accepted the truth and the role of God's organization, ding, 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 in providing reliable guidance, we could still be led astray. Satan would like nothing better than to cause us to lose confidence in the Bible or in the direction we receive from God's organization. Ephesians 4:14. Okay, so this is the citation for keep confidence in God's organization. So this is apparently what Ephesians 4:14 says. And it says, so we should no longer be children, tossed about as by waves and carried here and there, hither and thither, I hope other translations say, by every wind of teaching, by means of the trickery of men, by means of cunning and deceptive schemes. Okay, it doesn't mention the organization at all. It actually doesn't mention the Jehovah's Witness religion. So really any religion could read this, if they believe in the Bible, and say that it applied to them. Okay, great. Okay, this next one I think requires a propaganda voice. Somebody appreciated the Doug's Loves movie. I know. I think I heard that he doesn't do the Leonard Maltin game anymore. But I introduced that game to my Witness buddies. We would go on a baseball road trip every year. Like over Memorial Day weekends, we would just like drive around to different states. We wanted to go to like every ballpark in the U.S. basically. So we tried to hit a few every year. And on the road, we were all like trivia nerds and very, very competitive. So I introduced them to the Leonard Maltin game. We would play that. So good times with Doug's Loves Movies. That was my Hermanus impression. Doug's loves movies almost as much as Jehovah's people love Armageddon. All right.
Soon the devil will use powerful propaganda to mislead entire nations into taking sides against Jehovah. We can also expect Satan to intensify his efforts to mislead Jehovah's people. Consequently, it is important that we train ourselves to see the difference between truth and falsehood and to be obedient to the truth. Our survival during the Great Tribulation will depend upon it.
On it. Sorry, I read it wrong. Okay. So, Jesus gets 0 mentions. The devil, he comes up a couple times. I want to see how much organization comes up. 12 times. Oh, organization 12, Jesus. 0, sorry, Jesus. Sorry your pamphlet is so lame. Yeah, literally an anonymous organization. Okay. So they do their fake Bible example thing, even though the Bible doesn't mention anything about why people on the internet might be criticizing Jehovah's Witnesses specifically. It does a perverse thing that I don't love and I think is very toxic about Christianity, which is the importance of fearing Jehovah and having a wholesome dread of him. So an alternative title that I was thinking of for a while for Not a Cult was Wholesome Dread. There's, and that's what I titled my political edit channel. And I'm kind of thinking about making that the name of like a Substack, because I think it's a cool sounding phrase, but this is where that comes from, Wholesome Dread. So this idea is a key theme in the book Not a Cult, coming 2025. The wholesome dread of displeasing God. What an incredible like paradox this is. There's two almost antonyms side by side. It's great. If we were to fear humans more than we fear God, we could be led away from the truth. Then it gives a fake Bible example. It doesn't have anything to do with that. But you're probably wondering, how can I strengthen my fear of Jehovah and focus on pleasing him in every decision we make, everybody? As you read Bible accounts, ask yourself, if I had been in that situation, what decision would I have made? For example, picture yourself listening as the 10 Israelite chieftains gave their negative report. Would you have believed the report and given in to the fear of man? Or would your love for Jehovah and your desire to please him have won out? An entire generation of Israelites failed to recognize the truth that Joshua and Caleb spoke. As a result, they lost the opportunity to enter the promised land. I don't know if I would be emphasizing this, because doesn't that, if an entire generation of Israelites could fail to recognize the truth, then could not an entire generation of Jehovah's Witnesses, and therefore Jehovah's Witness leadership fail to recognize the truth? Like, I think that's something that a lot of people do when they're deconstructing, right? Is they're like, oh, well, maybe the organization used to be true, but they lost their way in the same way that the Israelites did. That's what Rolf Ferruli's book is about. He's a, I think, Norwegian circuit overseer who we've talked about before in the channel. He wrote a book, The Governing Body in My Beloved Religion. And basically, he was a scholar, an academic, or he is. He's got an actual education, and he's somebody that the organization used to prop up their 607 teachings. So now they don't have that one pseudo-academic source. And he wrote a book about his decision to leave the organization and essentially made this argument that they had lost their way in the same way that various generations of the Israelites have done. So, I don't know. Mother's maiden name for his bed. Ooh. So, here's a semi-provocative question from Skylar Black. I'm assuming that your name is pronounced Skylar, because it's kind of spelled like the Schuyler sisters from Hamilton. But correct me if I'm wrong. So, the semi-provocative question is silence consent, like in a system of abuse, like these MFers are writing? No, I don't. I think it's gotta be situation. I was trying to like run through scenarios in my head. Like, I don't think you could say as a hard and hard and fast rule. I don't think you could say that silence is consent. I don't think so. Actually, I don't know if you could ever say that. Unless you're like, okay, say nothing if you consent. And if you speak, because this is a riddle, it will not count as consent. I don't know. That was a semi-provocative question, Skylar Black. Humility. The most famous quality of this religion. Jehovah reveals the truth to those who are humble. Like us. That's why he's revealed exclusive truth to us, you see, because we're the most humble out of all the religions in the world. I used to have to study this like a little student in school. So I don't like this. This entire, we've talked about this a million times, but humble in the cult means subservience. Doesn't actually mean humility. Being humble, part of that is, I think, a willingness to be able to accept fault. You know, if you're like in a friendship with someone and the person never admits to being wrong ever, then they wouldn't be a good friend. Jehovah's friend. Oh yeah, I did say that in a video. Yeah, I think I said that in the one about ableism, right? I like what you said in your intro about your family. You love all the best parts of them that have nothing to do with the religion. The one thing that you would change is the religion. Yeah. No, I think that's true. That's how I try and balance the kind of conflicting ideas I have of my parents in my head. You know, kind of separating out the good times that I had when we were on the same page versus now when we're not. That's kind of how I think of it. But, you know, my dad really liked to throw this humility thing in my face when I was leaving. Like, how could you possibly become so full of yourself and so prideful and haughty to think that you know better than Jehovah? I'm your father. I have the truth. Me, I'm the humble one. Me. His words. Word for word. That's what he said. I don't know. Maintain confidence in theocratic direction. I like the stretching here that has to happen, right? Because this is not in the Bible. None of these words are in the Bible. Maintain confidence in theocratic direction. But that has become a synonym within the religion to the governing body. So even though the Israelites were obeying the Mosaic law and were under a literal theocracy where there were like priests and a king who was supposedly chosen by God himself or whatever bullshit, like that's very different from a modern day religion in the United States. And the word theocratic direction is not in the Bible, but they just kind of introduce this idea and start using it interchangeably for both so that they can just say something like this. And people are like, oh yeah, like in the Bible, even though it's not there. They're sneaky and they're tricky. Wait, maybe we should read this. Now see, okay, yeah. I want to read this because I have a take. I have another reflection on my parents after this. Okay, so maintain confidence. In ancient Israel, Jehovah used Moses and then Joshua to convey instruction to his people. The Israelites were blessed when they viewed these men as representatives of Jehovah God. when they viewed them that way. That's an interesting way of wording that, because of course in the stories in the Bible, the Israelites knew for sure that Moses and Joshua were appointed by God because they saw like incredible miracles that happened before their eyes, like the parting of the Red Sea and impossible things during the 10 plagues, and like hitting a rock and water comes out. Like they were able to do magic things that normal people cannot do. So it wasn't that they viewed them as being chosen by God. The whole point of those stories is there were other nations who believed in different gods, and that those false forms of worship would come in, and people would start to question whether Jehovah was the true God, or maybe some other nation's or another tribe's God was the real God, right? Like, that's the conflict in the Bible as I understand it. That's not the conflict that witnesses portray in their literature, but I think that's more accurate, right? Like, I don't think that that's what Bible scholars would say was an issue with the Israelites, that they stopped viewing them as representatives of Jehovah God Incorporated. Water. Okay. I think it's got to be the SpongeBob clip of him being like, water would be nice. I think that's what I got to do. Okay. Centuries later, big gap. Big time jump. Centuries later, when the Christian congregation was first formed, the 12 apostles gave direction. What was... Okay. Maybe I should finish the paragraph first. Then that group... Okay. So, Christian congregation, 12 apostles. Then that group was expanded to include other elders in Jerusalem. By following the guidance received from those faithful men, the congregations continued to be made firm in faith and increased in number day by day. In modern times, we too are blessed to feel the theocratic... Okay, we are blessed when we follow theocratic direction from Jehovah's organization. But how would Jehovah feel if we were to refuse to recognize whom he had... Damn it. Got so excited I could combine a couple words. Let's start again. But how would Jehovah feel if we were to refuse to recognize those whom he has appointed? Wow, I wonder. Big cliffhanger. But they do tell us we can answer that question by considering... And you're always considering things as a witness, aren't you? What happened when the Israelites were being led to the Promised Land? Okay. I think they're in dangerous waters here. I mean, they obviously reference this a lot. But, okay, I've got some issues here. One, they just skip past the fact that centuries later, there was a Christian congregation. Because what they're not saying, but it's a big problem, was that in the Bible, there's just like Judaism and the nation of Israel and the Israelites. And then Jesus comes along, is a Jew, like goes to the temple many times, specifically speaks out against the Pharisees, but that was a sect of Judaism and not the only kind. And then Christianity started after Jesus died. They called it the Way, but it was, of course, seen as a sect of Judaism because they believed that Jesus fulfilled the law and Jesus was Jewish. And so what Watchtower has trouble with is these little gaps where it's like, okay, well, who was Jehovah's representatives on earth when Jesus was there? Like, what temple was he going to and worshiping at? What religious denomination was Jesus? And then, like, before this little council that they formed in Acts 15 about circumcision, who was giving direction then? And, like, why is it that Job was considered to be the most holy of all people on the earth when he was not an Israelite? He was said to be of the Orient. So, like, why was the most spiritual person in all the earth somebody who wasn't a part of the only true religion? Like, there's all these little gaps and problems that that can only really work if it's all smushed down to a paragraph about that size. Now, they also tend to skip over something that I brought up to my dad when I was leaving, which is like, because he brought up this exact same thing, right? Like, and sorry, I haven't checked in with chat in a while. We'll get back there. So, like, witnesses will always cite these examples of, like, well, Jesus used Moses and Aaron to lead people in the first century Christians. And so I was like, okay, but didn't Moses then become too haughty and start taking credit for things Jehovah had done, and then he wasn't able to enter the promised land? Like, isn't that the whole story? So maybe the governing body have become like that. Like, maybe they are now taking credit for things Jehovah is doing. You know, I don't, to the extent I even believe that, I don't know. But just, I said that to my dad, and I don't think he had a really good answer to it. Ooh, Sean's got a theory that people are saying is good. Wait, what? I followed Paul Wallace's interpretation that the gods were just ETs, but that's a whole can of worms. You're seeing... Now, do you mean just extraterrestrials generally, or E.T., the extraterrestrial from the Steven Spielberg movie? None of the Bible was meant to be for 2,000 years later. Yeah, like, very obviously. Yeah, it ended with him freaking killing Moses. Yeah. So, in my opinion, it's a little bit of a problem that they skip over to this, but they introduced this, right? So here, they go on to talk about when the Israelites began to question Moses. At one point, the Israelites journeyed to the Promised Land. Prominent men challenged Moses and the role that Jehovah had assigned him. They said, the whole assembly, brackets, not just Moses, is holy, all of them, and Jehovah is in their midst. Although it was true that in God's eyes the whole assembly was holy, Jehovah had chosen Moses to take the lead among his people. By criticizing Moses, the rebels, rebel scum, were really criticizing Jehovah. By the transitive property. They did not focus on what Jehovah wanted. They focused on what they wanted. More power and recognition. God struck down the leaders of the rebellion, as well as thousands more who sympathized with them. Oh my God. Today, we can be sure that Jehovah disapproves of those who disrespect his organizational arrangements. The implication being that we was struck down. The kind, charitable viewers of the Sunday service stream will be struck down like rebels in old Bible-y times. So, but what about the part when when Moses was criticized by God for being wrong, and then he was disciplined? Are we going to talk about that? Because presumably, if the Israelites would have criticized Moses for that, they would have been right. Right? Also, are they right on this context? Let's just look at this. Oh, God. It's this bullshit. Then call it out the son of Ishon, the son of the son of the son of blah, blah. They rose up against Moses along with 250. Okay, so this is... They gathered together against Moses and Aaron and said to him, we have had enough of you. The whole assembly is holy, all of them. And Jehovah is in their midst. Why then should you exalt yourself above the congregation of Jehovah? When Moses heard this, he at once fell face down. Then he said to Korah and all of his supporters, oh, this is Korah and his rebellious sons. Okay, how could I have forgotten? This is a key text in Jehovah's Witness land. And to bring it back around and not a call, that's the female protagonist's name is Korah, named after this character for that very reason. In the morning, Jehovah will make known who belongs to him and who is holy and who should approach him and who... Okay, see, this is the fucking difference, isn't it? Is back then, they were like, okay, well, we'll see what God says. And then a magical thing happened, right? They were able to just kind of like put that to the test immediately. Whereas the governing body is like, apostates have existed basically for 150 years, as long as the organization. And any day now, Jehovah, who definitely disapproves of them, criticizing us because we're the same as Moses, and that's not haughty. That's a humble thing for us to be doing, is to write a magazine where we compare ourselves to Moses and then make millions of people read it. Well, you know, eventually God's going to vindicate us by killing all of our enemies. And that's just the kind of humble attitude that we have as Jehovah's people. So yeah, maintain confidence. Not because it's true. It's just in and of itself, you must have confidence. Unbelievable. Okay, so let's see what the punishment is. What happens if we deviated from the standard of wholesome words? I wonder if this is related to the wholesome dread full words. Consider an example. We're considering again, everyone. Get on your considering hats. We're going to need a considering bumper. I think that's going to have to happen. I mean, consider. Shit. Consider would be a good supercut. Guys, I know the last edit I dropped bombed, but maybe what this channel really needs to start taking off is another supercut of me making people say the same word again for 5 straight minutes. Now I want to do it. But I promised to take a break. All right. Consider an example. I just wanted to pause so everyone could get their considering hats on. In the 1st century, a rumor was apparently, word whisker, circulating among some Christians that the day of Jehovah had arrived. There may have been a letter supposedly written by the Apostle Paul that made such an assertion without taking the time to check the facts. Some Christians in Thessalonica believed the rumor and were even spreading it. They would have been fooled had they remembered the things Paul had taught them when he was still with them. Paul counseled his brothers not to believe everything they heard, and to help them in the future, Paul concluded his 2nd letter to the Thessalonians with the words, "Here is my greeting, Paul's in his own hand, which is a sign in every letter. This is the way I write." Foolproof security system. This is Paul. This is the way I write. Now you know it's me. Sincerely, Paul, who I am. P.S. For real, it really is me. This is so convoluted. Like this, they barely even have enough for a paragraph. There's so many word whiskers. First of all, it's what could happen. So maybe this could happen. Well, what maybe could happen is what maybe happened in the 1st century, which was apparently being circulated, supposedly. God damn it. This stuff all sucks. I mean, I know what passage of the Bible we're talking about. There is a part of the Bible, 2nd Thessalonians, where he says, like, the Lord is not yet come. And there are people who are saying that he has. And so Watchtower likes to take these verses out of context. But what's really amazing about this one is that Jehovah's Witnesses are saying that Jesus has come, like that he has arrived and is currently ruling in heaven and has been since 1914. Like that is what Jehovah's Witnesses teach. In the 1st century, okay, and they just do it entirely fucking wrong because they call it the Day of Jehovah, which is not what Paul even called it. They would have called it the coming of the Lord. You know, like that famous song. It was about Jesus, obviously, because that's what Paul was fucking writing about, was Jesus. All the time, never Jehovah. And so he was saying that there are some people, however, brothers, concerning the presence of our Lord Jesus Christ and our being gathered together to him, we ask you not to be quickly shaken from your reason, nor to be alarmed, either by an inspired statement, or by a spoken message, or by appearing to be from us, to the effect that the day of Jehovah is here. Their translation. So, what you got to think about as a witness is they are saying this. They are a group of Christians saying the presence of our Lord Jesus Christ is now. It has happened. The day of Jehovah is nigh. They're doing the thing. They're doing a false Christian. They're doing a toxic behavior. They're doing a cult. Very silly. But their justification for why they shouldn't have trusted this is so confusing. Like, how could they have checked the facts in the 1st century? Like, what they're saying is that this was a letter. May have been, supposedly, that made an assertion. So, this is true. Like, there are books attributed to Paul that were not actually written by Paul, and actually several of them are in the Bible. And let's actually look at Thessalonians. Let's look at was Thessalonians written by Paul. Well, we can look at the Bart Ehrman blog, by golly. So yes, this one they're saying was interesting. Wait, so it's 2 Thessalonians. What is this from? 2 Thessalonians. Oh my God. Okay, so the preeminent New Testament scholar is saying 1 Thessalonians was almost certainly written by Paul. Basic reason: it coheres in writing style, vocabulary, theological perspective, and presupposed historical situation, with the other letters almost universally acknowledged as having been written by Paul. 2 Thessalonians, yeah, not so much. I don't think I still have a subscription to his blog. I did for a while, so I can't log in and read the whole thing. But Paul himself thought that the end was coming in his lifetime. Nowhere is this more clear than in one of his letters. We are sure he wrote 1 Thessalonians. Paul wrote the Christians in Thessalonica because some of them had become disturbed over the death of a number of their fellow believers. When he converted these people, Paul had taught them that the end of the age was imminent, that they were soon to enter the kingdom when Jesus returned. But members of the congregation had died before it happened. Had they lost out on their heavenly reward? Paul writes to assure the survivors that no, even though those who have died will be brought into the kingdom. In fact, when Jesus returns in glory on the clouds of heaven, the dead in Christ will rise first. Okay, so he's saying all this stuff. And I think what he's building up towards is contrasting it with this, where he's like, no. No. The end is not coming soon. And don't believe anybody who tells you otherwise. And, quite frankly, it's a little suspicious for the letter to say, no, really, it's really written by me. Look, here's how I write. Amazing. Let's see if we can get some more details. 2 Thessalonians is what we want. Let's see. So there is some conflict here. Some scholars believe Paul wrote the epistle, but others reject its authenticity based on what they see as differences in style and theology between the first and second epistle to the Thessalonians. So let's look at the support for, I almost said opposition to authenticity. That was almost a real spunky foonerism. Okay. By the way, chat, I do remember you exist. I'm just tuned in, plugged into the matrix of Wikipedia. We've got a red underline, which is not... Oh. So this is the opposition to Thessalonians being real. And if you're just tuning in, the reason why we are reading this is because it is a key text in why you should believe in the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, apparently. And Watchtower's going all in on this. Definitely being written by Paul, of course, because they believe every Bible book was written by who they think needs to have written it in order for it to be true. At least as early as 1798, when Johann Ernst Christian Schmidt published his opinion, Paul's authorship of this epistle was questioned. More recent challenges to this traditional belief came from scholars such as William Reed in 1903 and Alfred Loisy in 1933, who challenged the traditional view of authorship. Okay, so it is worth noting that at least some forged Pauline letters were written well after a date modern scholars might deem... Okay, wait, I don't care about that bullshit. Oh, okay, so this is from Ehrman's thingy. In his book Forged, New Testament scholar Bart D. Ehrman puts forward some of the most common arguments against the authenticity of 2 Thessalonians. For example, he argues that his views concerning the second coming of Christ, expressed in 2 Thessalonians, differ so strikingly from those found in 1 Thessalonians that they cannot be written by the same author. Several modern scholars agree with Ehrman that 2 Thessalonians was not written by Paul, but by an associate or disciple after his death. Interesting. One scholar... The best understanding of 2 Thessalonians, this is quoting Norman Perrin, is to see it as a deliberate imitation of 1 Thessalonians, updating the apostle's thought. Perrin based his claim on his hypothesis that prayer at the time usually treated God the Father as the ultimate judge rather than Jesus. That's interesting. Sorry, now my ADHD brain wants to know more about this. Thankfully, Google is unusably bad. Oh, that's some Christian apologetic bullshit. Okay. Shit, so the whole time I just didn't have the right thing on the screen. That's cool. Alright. That's alright. That's okay. I was reading Wikipedia. That wasn't clear because I didn't have the correct thing on the stream. So I'm sorry. The point is, it was a shitty article. Or sorry, no, it's a shitty argument. So the way that they are going to interpret this is in paragraph 15. What we can learn from Paul's words is to... Well, my bad. I fucked that up so bad. When we hear something that does not harmonize with what we have learned from the Bible, or when we hear a sensational rumor, we need to use discernment. That is quite different than what Paul is saying, but okay. In the former Soviet Union, wow, our enemies once circulated a letter that was allegedly from world headquarters. The letter encouraged some of the brothers to form a separate independent organization. The letter itself appeared to be genuine, but faithful brothers were not fooled. They realized that the message the letter contained did not line up with what they had been taught. Today, enemies of the truth sometimes use modern technology in an effort to confuse and divide us. Rather than to be quickly shaken from our reason, we can protect ourselves by considering whether what we hear or read is in harmony with the truth we have already learned. Wow. Would have been nice of them to maybe include a picture of this letter. Like, I don't know. They just write all this out. They don't cite like any information, even to their own past words. That's very confusing. So, okay. Here's why this is annoying, but smart. They're doing something smart here, which is to, in the same way that they want their members to kind of conflate Jehovah with Jehovah's organization and therefore make God and the governing body one and the same. Like obeying God is obeying the governing body and vice versa. They're kind of trying to do that with when you hear a negative report, it is a false report. We've talked about that on stream a lot, that they use negative instead of untrue a lot. And like they will use the phrase critical thinking to mean negative thinking. I'm pretty sure that was actually on the stream from last week that they did that. In this month's broadcast, like critical thinking means being overly critical and nitpicky and like mean and bringing down the vibe. And so they're trying to be like, if you see something that makes us look bad, what you should do is assume that it is a USSR-esque false flag. It is fake news. It's probably a Russian bot that made that thing, and it's not true what you're seeing about Jehovah's Witnesses. That's what they want, is like, we have enemies, and our enemies make fake documents to trick people, and you can be tricked out of leaving the organization. You will be shaken from your reason, because of course the world is unreasonable, and reason is here within Jehovah's Witnesses. And the kind of reasonable pictures you print when you're not a cult is something like this, which ties together, I guess, this Soviet fake watchtower letter with a modern day, holy shit, what clearly appears to be Reddit. What clearly appears to be a Reddit UI thing. It's kind of Reddit. It's kind of YouTube, but I think it's Reddit. Am I wrong, chat? That's really what it looks like. That's crazy. I'm going to be so, like, freaked out if it turns out that we cover this on stream before, because I don't remember seeing this picture. This is bananas. Remember when I said I was going to watch a morning worship or something? This is crazy. Yes, don't believe anything you hear unless it's from us. Wink, wink. um, oh, we've got married people in the chat. I see what's happening. So pretty much, if you've read the Bible multiple times, debunked it, the book is just an entertaining read by now. Oh, the book of Judas, yeah. Oh, yeah, I saw the chat was talking about some of the apocryphal books of the Bible. They're pretty crazy. I was like, should I tell this personal anecdote or not? I think I decided on no. Okay. I want to live in this picture for a second. Who is the person? I guess just you. Like, they're imagining that this is your POV. Like, you could be at a family get-together. Everyone's wearing vests and sweaters and has collars and has slacks and dress shoes on. And so you think you're among friends, but really, some sneaky sneakerton could sneak along with misinformation. Modern technological versions of Korah's sons coming across your Reddit page. Like, that's what they're saying. And so I think what they're wanting to do is anytime, like, if you see a video of governing body member Jeffrey Jackson looking to be perhaps in some kind of hearing and not JW broadcasting, you should assume that that is AI and not real. We talked about this towards the beginning of the year. I made a video about AI, or maybe it was at the end of last year, but it was about AI and Jehovah's Witnesses, or specifically the fact that cults are going to use AI as an excuse to dodge criticisms. My argument then, I think, is still true, which is that it's just an excuse. Like, that thought of, like, oh, maybe this thing on the internet is fake and not real about my religion, like, I had that before the advent of modern AI. Like, I didn't really know what deep fakes were in 2015 whenever I would have seen that Australian Royal Commission thing that was emailed to me one time. Like, I just saw the thumbnail of the video, saw it was Jeffrey Jackson, knew he was not in the JW broadcasting studio, and was tempted to click on it. But I was like, well, it could be selectively edited. Like, it could be clips that were taken out of context. So it doesn't really matter that they're going to say it's AI, because they were going to say it was just edited before. And before the invention of video, they would have said that it was done by the Russians to trick you. And what's really fucking frustrating about this is, like, in the same way that, like, cults weaponize good advice, like, they will just sort of weaponize generic health advice like they do in the Awake. They'll just kind of take common sense stuff about depression and exercise, but make it into like a Trojan horse, to click on jw.org. I think, fuck, I totally lost what I was saying. Why was I saying that? Oh yeah, they weaponize, like, common sense warnings too. Like, you should obviously be skeptical of information that you see online. I genuinely think that's true. Like, you have to, just as a consumer of information, before you retweet something or share it to your Facebook feed or publicize it or make a video reacting to it or whatever bullshit, like, you do have to make sure that it's real. And that might take time. Like, that might just take time to, like, confirm with other people and see if, like, other people are reporting on it. You know, like, if maybe it's something in the news, right? So, and fake screenshots have always been really easy to make, because it's easy to edit the HTML code on a web page. You can make a convincing looking fake screenshot, right? So that's true. And, like, yeah, there is, like, disinformation from foreign governments and our own governments. Like, Russian bot farms exist, and, like, there are attempts to sow disinformation and discord in foreign nations using technological things like this. Like, governments do this. But that doesn't mean that it's, like, impossible to know what's true unless you go to the straight dope, like Watchtower or Russell Brand or whatever fucking idiot people listen to. Like, no, you should just, like, be skeptical. Look at a few sources. Be skeptical. Be like hesitant to come to fast and hard emotional conclusions. Is what I would say. But I think that's what's really frustrating. What's fucking frustrating is that the best lies have truth woven through, even if the truth is just the emotion attached to it. Oh, that is so good. And I'm sorry I stumbled over my words reading it, because that was very insightful and true. The best lies have truth woven through, even if the truth is just the emotion attached to it. I think that's great. Like, and I think them referencing the Soviet Union is very intentional in terms of, like, the Russian government does have a ban on Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, they also have a ban on, like, Scientology and presumably the LDS Church. Like, the only thing that you're allowed to be in Russia is Russian Orthodox, as I understand it. Like, you can't be perceived as speaking out against the Russian Orthodoxy. So lots of religions are banned. Certainly lots of, like, Muslim religions are banned or Islamic religions, maybe I should say, in Russia. It's not just Jehovah's Witnesses, but they know, like, by dropping that, it's like, oh, wow, so maybe it's Putin doing everything, doing every Reddit post I've seen. I don't know. Very strange. So this sucks. I didn't intend to go this far into it, but I hope it was enjoyable. I hope that you enjoyed that we did this. Wait, I didn't want to go to YouTube. Why did I do that? I wanted to go to jw.org. Because we've got new morning worships. I just decided that's what we're going to call them today. So, a new guide just dropped. Betty George's. Go on Walking in Love. So this is probably a super generic, boring talk. But... Sorry, I gotta share the screen. God damn it. Alright. So here's Betty George's. Like, phonetically so similar to Eddie George, who was an OSU football player. It sounds like if Eddie George was doing a prank phone call and had to change his name. Like, my name is Betty George's. I haven't watched either of these, this or the Robert Lucioni one. Lucioni. But I've been kind of itching to make an edit. And so, hey, we gotta check in. Oh, okay, let's do a chat check-in here, because you're right. Some people are like, did Jake actually read the chat? Okay, so before we get into this, I think I'm going to take my requisite break, and to do that, you all know what it's time for. It's what happens on a stream when somebody takes a break, and that's awkward silence.
Have you ever been confronted by a bad report, a false report about Jehovah's people? Angry? Did God really say that?
Okay, if that felt like an eternity, I have bad news. That was only a minute and like 3 seconds. Okay, let's check out what's going on in the chat. So, what was chat up to while I was rambling? Sorry. Terrible, terrible silence. Do I need to make an apology? Oh no, I don't have an apology corner. You know what? It would be legitimately difficult to make an apology corner bumper because they don't say the word sorry a lot in the broadcast. It's they don't use the word I or apologize hardly ever, so that's going to be tricky. Okay. We're jumping back about 20 minutes. Yeah, okay. But if we would just take the time to check the facts. Oh, I developed a pretty good Sam Hurd recently. Let me see if I can get back into it.
I developed a Sam Hurd. Now let me see if I can remember how I did him. Culty talk. Is that a boy genius lyric? Also, not enough to read these. You gotta highlight it and regurgitate it. Hi, Jake. How can? Now that is just confusing. Uh-oh. This is a serious post, but I'm still using my silly voice. How do we feel about this, Hammer, by the way?
How can I stop having nightmares at night about... Wah! Shit, it went away. Sam Hurd, no, come back. Sam.
Mommy?
It's legitimately hard to say mommy in his voice. I don't know how he did it. How can I stop having nightmares at night about being at a convention? I'm Pimo and I think I might be witch honey right now. Oh my god. Maybe chat already got into this, but is this common for anybody else? Like I had this, absolutely. I have fewer of them now than I used to. But I used to get almost like nightly stress dreams about being in a convention or a Kingdom Hall. But man, a lot of times it was at a convention. I don't know what that is, and I still get it. They've kind of replaced my old stress dream that I had as a witness, which is like, you are enrolled in college, and you forgot to go to science class for the entire semester, and the final is today, idiot. So you didn't even go to class, but now you're going to take a test on it. Like, that was my stress dream before, and now it is that. But I gotta say, it's gotten better. Just over time, I have fewer of those kinds of dreams. Interesting. Okay. Okay, so this is regarding, I believe, talking about, like, the first century congregation believing a letter that may or may not have been Paul's. This is a great point. I can't remember the literacy rate of that era, but I'm pretty sure most people just had to listen and try to do their best from there. They couldn't take home scrolls, let alone be able to take notes. Great point. Like, not only were they not handwriting experts, they might not be even reading it themselves. They might just be listening to somebody else read the scroll. Incredible. Very good. The Gospel of Thomas is very theologically interesting. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but this might be self-indulgence corner, which I kind of have a job for. I just kind of want to play one of these. I think this is what this is.
Oh, happy day. All worldly complaining about YouTube.
Oh, that's when I complain about YouTube drama. Okay, but this is still kind of a complaint. I'm going to use this for pretension, just being pretentious in general. But during COVID, I started writing a novel, which I'm hoping will actually be the follow-up to Not a Cult. But it's a cult thriller, kind of different, like different genre and story than Not a Cult, which is like a paranormal, like demon possession story. This other idea I had was more like grounded, secular, psychological thriller thing. But the cult that I had made were Gnostics, and I was obviously basing them very, very similarly on Jehovah's Witnesses in terms of like their beliefs, but I was basically making them a group based on like the Gnostic books of the Bible specifically, mostly because I just needed there to be a cult to do something with, for the story. And I was listening to a lot of Bart Ehrman on like Audible, great teaching courses and his books and stuff and his YouTube channel. And who else writes about that stuff? Like Elaine Pagels, does she write about the apocryphal books? Somebody else wrote one on the Gnostic Gospels. So I was just really interested in that stuff. But then turns out there's actually a lot of modern day Gnostics. It's kind of weird. Okay. Well, there was other stuff happening with chat, but now I don't remember. I got to catch up now. Ooh, you have nightmares about living forever surrounded by witnesses. um, out in service scares. I don't have a lot of those. That's interesting. I wonder why that is. Because I get the convention thing, but I don't get the ministry thing in terms of like nightmares. Interesting. A meeting where, but you're also at your high school. I have a lot of dreams where I'm like with my witness family on vacation, and basically like I get caught as an apostate again, and kind of like relive that feeling of them like finding my channel, like yelling at me and stuff. Like that happens a lot.
We must express bloodlust in Samuel Hurd's voice. As you can tell, this is not all that different from my propaganda voice that I do.
Is that reading a Sam Hurd, by the way? Sometimes I think I'm nailing it, and then like if I actually record myself and listen back to it, it just sounds like me doing a shitty voice. So I don't know. Is it okay at this point culturally to make RFK Jr. jokes? Because are we allowed to make fun of how he talks now that we know that he is a sex pervert who cuts off animals' heads? Because I had a pretty good RFK for a while, but I think he had a stroke or was struck by lightning or something. So the way he talks, I don't want to be mean.
Mommy? Mommy, when I get out, call me Sammy. I have to suckle on my mother's breast. And you might be thinking, well, Sammy, your mother must be 150 years old by now. And you would be correct. But I have kept her moisturized on a drip feed, keeping her skin supple and her breast full of mother's milk.
Very, very sorry I did that. I really can't justify that in any way. Okay, let's see what's going on with Betty George's. We'll speed this up eventually, but I want to get a sense of his normal Jehovah's Witness talking speed, which is always fun to hone in on, at least if you're me specifically.
Question. What would you say is one of the greatest gifts that we received from
What was the
Jehovah?
first little noise you made?
Question.
Question.
What would you say is one of the greatest gifts
Question.
that we received from Jehovah? Interestingly, the comment that we'll read in a few minutes from the Watchtower says that perhaps.
Wait a minute. Interestingly, the comment that we're going to read in a few minutes from the Watchtower says, and then he just says it now. So you're not going to read it in a few minutes because you're just reading it now.
One of the greatest gifts that we've received from Jehovah is our ability to worship him. And this gift goes hand in hand with another gift that Jehovah has given us, which is highlighted in today's text. That is our ability to love. But when you think of an ability is only of value if it is developed and if it is put to good use.
Ah, okay. Sound off. Will we get a dictionary definition? It feels like we're honing in, like a game of Battleship, where all the little pegs are just circling the ship. You haven't quite hit it yet. I feel like he's really setting us up, lobbing up a dictionary definition. Thank you. I think that I said that word very well in Sam's voice. RFK's voice condition is called spasmodic dysphonia. The rapper DMC is the same thing. Interesting. I didn't know that. Anthony Morris. Thanks. I'm still just doing Sam Hurd. How the fuck what does Tony Morris sound like? Jehovah, your Tony Morris and Sam Hurd are pretty great, I guess is what you're saying there. No, it's okay. Sorry, let's get back to Betty. Let's see if he gives us that sweet dictionary definition. I am going to go ahead and speed him up. I think he's got some kind of accent. I like this guy's voice. It's very easy to listen to. I think I would have enjoyed Betty George's as a witness because he's got as you can probably tell, I like people who have a unique way of speaking. I tend to hone in on that, and so I like all of the accents you get to hear on the website. Like unironically, that's something I liked as a witness.
For example, a child is born with the ability to walk. But that ability will be of no value if it's not developed and not put to use. So use.
What? Am I being dense, or does that not make sense? I need to think about this.
And if it is put to good use. For example, a child is born with the ability to walk, but that ability will be of no value if it's not developed and not put to use.
What? Okay, a child is born with the ability to walk, but unless they develop the ability to walk... This is how I was in school, by the way. I think it's an ADHD thing to hone in like on the really specific wording of a thing. Maybe this is like an obvious point he's making, but I don't understand this. It's almost like he's saying you are born with the ability to walk, but you have to learn to walk to do it. Which I don't think makes any sense. Which is like, no, if you haven't learned how to walk, then you don't just innately have the ability to walk. Maybe I'm just wrong. This isn't important at all. But yeah, babies can't walk is exactly that's mostly what I'm trying to get to. I'm like, I don't understand this. Are we saying, I think it's just bad phrasing. I know, but this is why I had trouble as a student.
So here's our question then. How can we continue to develop our ability to love? Let's consider 2 steps. Step number 1, by imitating our loving Father, Jehovah. And that is what Paul encourages.
Oh, God, yes. Imitate the loving Father, Jehovah. He taught us how to love so good, the way just earlier in this stream we were talking about him killing a ton of people who dared question his beloved Moses, who later God also kind of screwed over differently for other reasons. Well, that is clearly going to be a very generic and boring talk, but be determined to endure is interesting. It seems like it could get into, maybe we can take bets on this. Like, is he going to be like endure persecution, like physical persecution? Is he going to talk about opposers? Apostatas? Is he going to talk about apostates? Oh my God. ChatGPT can suck my grits. Yeah.
Now,
Don't
we
even
often
bother
talk
kissing
about
him.
endurance. But here's a question. Is
Echo is
endurance
down here getting some
unique
love, by the way.
to Jehovah's people? No. Everybody has to endure things. We think people have to endure death and sickness and disasters and violence.
I did think for a second that only Jehovah's Witnesses endure things generally. I had never considered that everybody has to endure things. What do they think the fucking Olympics is? I don't know. The witnesses do this weird thing where they clarify something that nobody was confused on, mostly just to kill time and say words, because you technically have to say words to give a talk.
Violence and pandemics, food shortages, and much more. Why even being persecuted for our faith does not set us apart from other people in the world. You think about it. Others have to deal with persecution for their religion, their ethnic background, even the color of their skin. Yes, due to imperfection and this wicked world we live in, everybody has to endure something. But Jesus highlighted, though, something that sets our endurance apart from others, and it's in our text for today.
Wow, that's amazing. So Jesus highlighted the way that Jehovah's Witnesses' endurance is different from the endurance of other people who claim to follow Jesus, and that's what is apparently in the Bible directly.
Your turn to Luke chapter 8 and verse 15. Let's read it again.
Echo's being so
Luke
cute.
8:15. It says, "As for that on the fine soil, these are the ones who, after hearing the word with a fine..."
Didn't I reference this as a bit earlier, this description?
"Good heart, retain it, and bear fruit with endurance." Do you notice what separates us apart from others in the world, us as an organization? See, we hear the word of God, we retain it, we endure, but we bear fruit while we endure.
The amount of just like creepy phrases they use. We bear fruit as we endure. I dare you to take this talk seriously while I say such things. Everybody has to endure stuff. So far, pretty powerful point, but we bear fruit while we endure. Did you notice, by the way? Did you notice this? What separates us from others in the world, us as an organization, which does not appear in the scripture.
It says, "As for that on the fine soil, these are the ones who, after hearing the word with a fine and good heart, retain it and bear fruit with endurance."
And then he's like, did you notice the religious organization mentioned in that verse? Like, no, that's not a thing that happened. He's just lying to you. He doesn't know it. Because this is a person who's lost his mind. This is a person who has no idea what the fuck is happening in the world. Historical things that happen on certain dates, he thinks they happen on other dates because they make his religion true. You know what I mean? He thinks he has to clarify that not just his people endure things.
There while we are enduring. Well, the context of this scripture is talking about, and as our comments mentioned, talking about preaching the kingdom message. And we know our brothers and sisters do that no matter what they're going through. They continue telling others the good news about the kingdom and about Jehovah.
Or else. They continue to do it no matter what they're going through. Or they might be considered inactive and given, fewer privileges in the congregation.
Other fruitage that we bear. Well, look at Colossians chapter 1 and verse 10. Colossians chapter 1 and verse 10. It says, so as to walk worthily of Jehovah, in order to please him fully, as you go on bearing fruit in every good work and increasing in the accurate knowledge of God.
Is it echoing in the mic, by the way?
Yes, even while going through very difficult times, terrible times, what do our brothers and sisters do? Well, they continue to do every good work. They look to see how they can help others, support the kingdom, support the organization, support their brothers and sisters. Then there's also Galatians 5.
Support the organization. Slip that one in there. All right. I want to see if he gets into... Okay, so he gets to persecution porn.
One brother who we will call Ivan
whom we will call Ivan. Why? Just say his name. Why do they do this? Why do they change the names of people in their stories? I know that they are just doing it because they always have, and it's like, well, we don't want to draw attention to the people. We don't want people coming up to them at the meetings being like, hey, I read your story in the Watchtower. I guess, but it's just like, the stories are vague and the names are fake. I think the question is less like, are their stories made up, but rather like, why would you believe them at all?
I'm just gonna lay in bed.
Okay.
Blasting music.
Oh, our neighbors are blasting loud music. So Christina is going to a different room. Our neighbors fucking suck. If you're our upstairs neighbor and you are watching the stream, I do appreciate your support, but turn your fucking music down. Because my wife gets migraines and it makes her life difficult.
Been in 5 different prison cells in the detention center.
Believe me,
at
folks,
the time of his writing.
we have talked to them.
And his prayers include asking Jehovah to give him the opportunity to witness on every occasion. So what does he do? He witnesses on every occasion. In one transfer, the prison official sent Ivan to a special section that had very harsh conditions. It was a section that is set aside for especially dangerous criminals.
Why did he do that then? Like, are we sure? Because we can't check anything, because we can't verify any of this information, because he didn't give us any specific information. But how do we know that he didn't do something dangerous to get put in the dangerous criminal part of the jail?
And they put Ivan in a cell with a man accused of terrorism. What would Ivan do? Immediately began to witness to him. Ivan says that his cellmate turned out to be very interested in the Bible. They often spoke about the Bible.
No way. A terrorist was a religious zealot? I've never heard of this happening.
Has now been transferred to another cell and is witnessing to those inmates. But before leaving, he arranged for some brothers to begin corresponding with this man.
Something very cold and weird about the phrase, he arranged for some brothers to begin corresponding with this man. Very weird.
And Ivan is hoping that this man continues to correspond and continues studying.
He was sent to death row.
A sister we'll call Nadia.
Demoted.
Was told
Oh my
about
God.
the possibility that her prison sentence might...
The fucking... Did you hear that? Did that pick up on Mike, the bass that just played? It scared the shit out of me. It was insane. It shook the house. It was like they were... It's like they were listening to the stream and were like, oh yeah, fuck you. I'm going to turn up the music 9,000 notches.
Might be reduced to house arrest. Well, Nadia was not as excited as one would naturally imagine. Why? Well, it's because Nadia
had been indoctrinated by utter psychopaths like Robert Lucioni, who believe things like, just for example, one of the things that he believes is that his bosses are going to go to heaven and angelically fight alongside Jesus and kill, like, the U.S. Army and other armies around the world. The Mounties, even like the Canadian Mounties, fuck you. You're gonna be killed in Armageddon by this guy's bosses, and he's corrupted poor Nadia's mind into thinking that being in a prison cell, is good because it gives her an opportunity to preach to other inmates, and that is specifically and exclusively and only on Robert Lucioni himself and no other people. that was not true, that last part. I actually feel like I should clarify that I'm kidding, in case, if Watchtower's watching r/exJW, they got to be checking out the 8th most popular YouTube channel.
But she still had much work to do there in prison.
Days.
See, over the 6 months that she was there, the prison officials had transferred.
It does make me laugh to think about maybe somebody in the PID watching this stream specifically and having to see an edit where an old lady says matzo balls. I hope that has happened at some point.
Or I put 22 different women in her cell with her, and Nadia witnessed all of them. She conducted Bible studies with 5 of them. Nadia does not see an urgent need to leave the prison quite yet.
Well, so this is an ongoing situation? They have a person who is willingly choosing to stay in prison, and she's only imprisoned because of her work as a Jehovah's Witness. And now she's been given an opportunity to go home, and she's refusing to do that because if she stays in jail, she can preach Jehovah's Witness stuff that boosts this guy's boss billions of dollars in assets. Holy shit.
So what's the difference between Nadia and Ivan and their fellow inmates? They're all
Nadia and Ivan will never actually be out of prison because they're in a cult, and they will take that prison with them wherever they go.
all enduring prison. But Ivan and Nadia are bearing fruit while they're enduring. They're witnessing to others. They're doing.
But our witness people enduring prison are doing it a lot better, actually, and for Jesus. Unlike the rest of those poor saps in there who probably did do those crimes.
Good works. They're maintaining their joy in other aspects of the fruitage of God's Spirit.
Are any of the people, here's the thing, they should clarify what these people were arrested for, because there are a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses in jail that you wouldn't want to brag about them witnessing in jail. You know what I'm saying?
Now, of course, Jehovah's Spirit is helping them to endure. Our brothers and sisters there in Russia, during the search of his home, one brother, while they were searching his home, became very, very anxious. He prayed to Jehovah. He says, Jehovah, please, I do not know what to do. Please help me know what to do. Right then, the investigator who was leading the investigation was looking at our brother's refrigerator, and
I feel Satan tempting me to make another edit.
Who was leading the investigation was looking at our brother's refrigerator, and
okay, this is wait. So this seems like something that either I have streamed about with exJW Caleb, or we always talk about but haven't done yet, which is urban legends among Jehovah's Witnesses. And this seems like one of those stories. I feel like I heard stories like this growing up. Okay, so there was a search in somebody's house. I'm going to play this at normal speed because my brain is being too slow.
Enduring. They're witnessing to others. They're doing good works. They're maintaining their joy in
Now, what sounded more natural to you, 1.5 or the way he's talking now on purpose?
other aspects of the fruitage of God's Spirit. Now, of course, Jehovah's Spirit is helping them to endure. Our brothers and sisters there in Russia, during the search of his home, one brother, while they were searching his home, became very, very anxious. He prayed to Jehovah. He says, Jehovah, please, I do not know what to do. Please help me know what to do. Right then, the investigator who was leading the investigation was looking at our brother's refrigerator, and he read the word. Investigation was looking at our brother's refrigerator.
Just had to, just for posterity.
And he read the words expressively and loudly that was on a magnet on his refrigerator. Do not be anxious, for I am your God. The brother immediately recognized this was an answer to his prayer. Others of our brothers and sisters are dealing.
How is a man reading a fridge magnet out loud an answer to his own prayer? I mean, he already had the fridge magnet. Like, he could have read it in his own head. And anybody who ever entered his refrigerator would have seen it too. I don't understand how that's an answer to a prayer, to be
with
perfectly
terrible
honest.
violence. And
I mean, what happened after that? The story just kind of mysteriously ended after the guy who was searching his house read the fridge magnet. I mean, how do we know that he didn't end up, being beaten after that? I want to know the rest of the story. I need more information before I can applaud.
Yamilet is a 44-year-old sister in Venezuela. She has 2 daughters, one 17 years old, one 20 years old. Where she lives has become a very, very dangerous place. Those who can move away do. And Yamilet says it's very hard to keep a positive attitude. She worries about the safety of her 2 daughters.
I wonder if the governing body ever feel that when they're tossing and turning at night in their California king-size beds at a luxury apartment complex that their subordinates built for them, and they never have to pay for food or travel or anything ever, actually, and they're worshipped by 8 million people around the world. I wonder if they ever worry about their safety at night with their electricity and no crime ever.
Yamilet tells of seeing people held at gunpoint while their little children look on, of witnessing executions on the street, being caught in gun battles while she's in the ministry. And she says most troubling is hearing the desperate screams at night of people pleading for their life. She says
Jesus
some
Christ.
mornings after particularly terrifying nights, she feels helpless and frightened to the point where she can't even bear the thought of going out of the house, going out into the ministry. But what does she do? She says, I give myself...
She does it anyway, idiot. What? You thought I was going to tell a story where someone was too afraid to do work for the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, and so they just didn't? No. She remembered talks like this, which she's pummeled her brain with 8 times a week for her entire life. And she remembered that if she doesn't do her best in the ministry, she'll have blood on her hands, that she might be complicit in the death of others, and she herself may not survive Armageddon.
For good talking to. I say, Yamilet, you're a regular pioneer. You have to go out and preach the good news. So she says she goes out, and she's always encouraged for doing so. Recently, Yamilet called...
Whoa, now, hang on. There's an edit point here. Maybe he had another refrigerator moment. And by the way, no judgment. I've had about 9,000 refrigerator moments on this very stream, as you can see. And I absolutely edit them out. But what I don't do is make it quite so distracting.
So she says she goes out, and she's always encouraged for doing so. Recently,
Whoa! It's like the morph effect. That was weird. Maybe what they cut out was a bunch of people booing and screaming after he told a blatantly terrible story, as if it was a good thing. Maybe that's what was cut out of the broadcast.
Called on a woman who cried over and over again
oh my God.
about the terrible things that were taking place. Yamilet says that as I shared the kingdom message with her, I thought, thank you, Jehovah. This would be me if I did not know you.
Wow. Couldn't be... What's her name? Yamilet? Perfect pause face. Wow. I would be here crying if I didn't have you. I mean, this is crazy. Not a good story. And this is what they didn't cut out.
Abner and Isamar are also a young couple. They're a young couple also from Venezuela. But due to the crisis at home, they moved to Peru nearly 2 years ago. And now their lives became much more difficult due to the coronavirus pandemic and the national lockdown.
Wait, why are we still slow? Oh no, I'm so sorry.
And though they were very careful, they took many precautions, both of them fell ill and were diagnosed with COVID-19.
Wow.
Now they mentioned that they had been diagnosed with COVID-19 only to their families in Venezuela and to Jehovah in prayer. Just 1 hour later, a local sister knocked on their door and left a bag of food and an encouraging card for them. Not even a half an hour later, after that, another sister brought a bag of food and a small amount of money for them.
Oh, fuck this story. You know, this sucks. I hate this. First of all, it's not... What? People talk within the organization. She told her witness family, right? And the witnesses probably called the congregation elders immediately. And this is just... What about the people who die every day hungry? Little children who never have proper nourishment and then they die. And nobody ever drops a bag of fucking money on their doorstep because they got sick one time. Okay? Like, what kind of God is that you'd put on your special suit and hair gel for? I don't understand this. How can people really... Like, I don't understand how people can justify this in your brains. Like, I never really felt like I had a handle on this as a witness. it's like, okay, the idea of God helping everybody in their lives a little bit makes sense, but then it doesn't. As soon as you recognize the fact that so many people who cry out for help never get it, and they just, like, why? If God could magically give you food and money when you're sick, then why wouldn't he do that to people who need it way more than you, who don't have a church community? I don't know. Annoying. Yeah, those kids didn't say the magic
When
words.
they had somewhat
exactly
recovered,
right.
they realized that someone had stolen money from their bank account.
Wow.
And it was the money that they had set aside for a theocratic purpose. Again, they told Jehovah in prayer, but this time they told nobody else. Later that same day, they received money from a sister in the exact amount that they lost. And despite the many obstacles that they're going through, they continue to...
How do they know that it wasn't stolen by that sister? And she's just giving it back because she feels bad. I probably not. They tell these stories a lot where it's like, and it was the exact amount of money that we needed, and we didn't even ask. Jehovah just provided it. It's like, well, fuck you. We were also struggling a lot as witnesses, and nobody gave us bags of money in the exact amount that we needed without even asking for it by anybody except for Jehovah. Like, no. We had to, like, borrow money. It was from our parents, and it was like a long, awkward conversation, you know, full of shame and guilt. And then they would talk about why, because they're doing it because Jehovah, right?
to put the kingdom first. In addition to sending money home to their families in Venezuela, they continue as regular pioneers. They are assisting the Peru branch with the Peruvian Sign Language work. What's the point? The point is that our brothers and sisters are enduring very, very difficult times all around the world. And yet what separates them? What separates us from the rest of mankind who are enduring similar trials?
Oh.
We bear fruit with endurance. And isn't...
Wow. This is so stupid. This is another tone-deaf talk. Boy, oh boy. What a fucking embarrassing talk this is. Yeah, everybody has to endure. Those starving children that I just mentioned, and Robert Luciani couldn't have known this at the time. I think he probably could have seen that objection coming, though. Like, all right, why do little babies die every goddamn day, then? Just explain that. Well, it's because their suffering doesn't result in fruit. Their endurance doesn't result in more Jehovah's Witnesses being baptized, and free labor being given to Kingdom Hall building projects, and monthly donations via our website, or at the Kingdom Hall and donation. Like, their suffering isn't as important to God because God doesn't get anything from their suffering, even though Jehovah doesn't have to use humans to preach the good news. He could make the rocks cry out, of course, but he doesn't. He lovingly uses us and then privileges us over all other people for the thing that he doesn't even actually need us to do. But just, it keeps us busy in the time of the end. It keeps us busy. And so that's loving that God has given us something to do, and he gives us blessings for doing the thing that he doesn't need, that he doesn't give to other people. Yeah, like, this is bananas. Doesn't make any sense. I think if you believe in the Bible, you're being a silly Billy, and you should stop it. Doesn't make any sense. Stop. Just, it's insulting, isn't it? It's insulting to people who suffer, like, gracefully, without making it a whole thing about what religion you should join. Like, there's so many people who just quietly struggle, and I'm not one of these people. I only ever do anything loudly and on camera on this channel. But, you know, there are people who do just suffer and endure, and they never get any special envelopes full of cash from Jehovah's loveliest, kindest people on earth. I don't know. I think this was not a good talk. I think they should stop doing it. Thank you. Yeah, I put it on my gravestone. Frankly, let that be my enduring contribution to society. Okay, that was really stupid. But it reminded me of some smart videos that I've watched. So something that I was thinking about doing, and maybe this will be like a dry run, for a thing. For a thing I was thinking about doing on the channel. I was thinking about doing some videos on the channel that are more just short, vlog style, because basically I just don't want to, for the next like 4 weeks, I'm planning on trying to make some stuff that has nothing to do with Jehovah's Witnesses, just as kind of like a I don't know, mental health break creatively. Like streaming is fun and I do it for the time I do it, and then it doesn't require any more work on my part. Whereas like making videos does take a long. But I don't know. I just like uploading this stuff, and I think about Witness stuff a lot. And so I've been thinking about just like shorter confessional style videos without quite so much editing bullshit thrown in. Been enjoying some other exJW channels, and just like, I don't know why I feel like I overcomplicate things. So but I watched some videos recently. I'm just going to switch to my regular YouTube account. A couple videos recently that had absolutely nothing to do with Jehovah's Witnesses, but the content just intersected so perfectly with my thoughts as a Jehovah's Witness. And I thought like, oh, this would be a fun like springboard for a discussion. And so one of them, I would say somewhat unexpectedly, or maybe it's just unexpected that I would show it on this channel, but it came from The Line, that channel. Sorry, no, like Matt Dillahunty's YouTube channel, not even The Line. So this is, he did this interview that was so fantastic with this guy who now I'm obsessed with his channel, Durante Lamar. Durante Lamar, you will like him after we listen to some of his story, but their whole conversation just really made me think a lot about faith. Like, they said some stuff in this that, even though I've obviously like listened to a gajillion interviews like this about people losing their faith, and certainly countless exJW stories, like they still found some little gems that like I hadn't really thought about. Spiritual gems, you might say. And yeah, definitely subscribe to Durante Lamar's channel. It's really, really great. It's been a long time since I've like actually been into like an atheist channel specifically and just like binge their content, because a lot of times I feel like it's kind of everybody saying the same thing in different ways, isn't it? Glass houses throwing stones and so forth. But anyway, his channel is really great. So let's watch this. I'm trying to remember what the exact line was, but I think it's pretty early on in the interview. This is a former preacher
who will not speak up for himself, and you're speaking up for this God who will not speak up for himself. And so if you want to live honestly and you want to live integrally, then this God is going to have to start speaking for himself. And that was literally my last prayer with God. My last prayer to God was, if we're going to have a relationship, you're going to have to treat me like Adam. We're going to have to start over from scratch, and you're going to have to reveal yourself to me.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for supporting the...
Oh, okay. So that was just a little intro to like a preview of the rest of the conversation. But the conversation itself is really great. I'm going to skip to that. That, I think I even talk about it in, I don't know, like either the video I made when I was Pimo or the video I made after I left about like my last prayer with God. But it was similar. It was like, well, actually, I shouldn't even say that. It wasn't my last prayer with God. I think it was like a realization that I came to, and I know other people have too. That's like, I've put in the work, God. Like, I've really tried to believe, and you're not showing yourself to me. So I just, and frankly, I think that little thing of like, I feel like asking you to demonstrate your existence isn't too much to ask based on whatever. I don't know. I like that. But that actually is now I played this, and so I'm sorry that I said
Matt, thank you for having me on, man.
That was my pleasure. So
I'm going to skip forward a little bit.
I really wish this never would have happened. I wish you would have never got excited about Jesus. Cultural Christianity seemed to be the preference.
Was it a drain in the sense that
people who could fix my...
What have I done? How have I actually gone and done this great badness?
That my family would have been super excited when I got saved and got excited about God, but it was really more of a drain for them. And so it was just like, I really wish this never would have happened. I wish you would have never got excited about Jesus. Cultural Christianity seemed to be the preference.
Was it a drain in the sense that you were
Mutual.
clearly serious about something that they weren't serious about, and they didn't want to be, because if you run around making a claim of who you are and you're not really that, then as soon as you come up against somebody else who's like a serious Christian, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I thought I was a Christian, but I just went to church every now and then and tried to thank Jesus.
Okay, sorry. This isn't even the part that I want to show. I'm going to skip ahead and try to find this one part that felt exJW specific to me.
And in a way, almost people-centric, but still with that superstitious room of, well, when God says something, we all have to jump with it, But that's where I was when I actually ended up deconverting, as I was a part of the urban church movement, which is the mega churches, prosperity movement, grace and favor churches. These are the churches that feel more like rock concerts than hymnals. Right. And I loved it. It was an excellent feeling. But I did get to the place where I was like, hey, the messaging is damaging. And that was the hard thing for me, is realizing that no matter how good I felt about these services, and these services were incredibly animated, and incredibly inspiring, but combined with the messaging and looking at my community as a Black man, I was like, yikes, teaching people to depend on a God who's not going to show up in a community that's already broken and dysfunctional is probably not a great strategy. And by this time, I think it was the Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown thing.
So I'll stop there for a second before he gets into this next part. But I thought that was really, really interesting. First of all, I think unfortunately, when you're a witness, your actual meetings aren't that exciting. You're not getting those super amazing fun sensations, but there are there's a certain comfort to it because you're used to being there, and that feeling is what people are afraid to lose. That sense of community. And so this kind of made me think about that. You hit a point when you're deconstructing from any religion where you're like, well, wait a minute, the message itself is damaging. This isn't a good message. And the way he presents it as we are teaching people to be reliant on someone who is not going to be there for them, I thought was so powerful, because it's I hadn't really thought about that, but religion is learned helplessness, right? And he's talking about it from his perspective as a Black man, and being the Black community, we shouldn't be putting our faith in an invisible thing that's not actually going to show up and do the work, right? We should probably elevate people who are doing the work. That's really interesting for me. Just even as from a selfish perspective, it's well, even if the church, I feel good because I'm a ministerial servant and I feel this gives me value in this little system, the message itself is damaging to other people outside the group, abuse victims and queer people. And, frankly, it's not great towards minorities either, because it's a religion that was created and is largely run by white American dudes. And so a lot of cultural nuances get lost. So anyway, he had a couple things like that I just thought were cool. If we're cool with this, I just wanted to play a couple video clips. Gold prospector. He does look like a gold prospector.
Things that were going on. Sure. And it caused a real wreck in me to say, I don't want to be pretending to help. I actually want to be helping. And I got at that crossroads where I feel I don't feel like I'm actually helping people by robbing them of their agency and autonomy. And I felt like that's what I was doing as a pastor.
I thought that was so fascinating. I've never heard it expressed that way. But being a pastor, you do it because you are helping people, right? And I'm sure that's what most witnesses would say is what their motivation is to help people. But if you actually want to help people, you can't teach them to be reliant on this religious structure that isn't actually looking out for their best interest. Forget about God even. Just the religion itself, or in our case as Jehovah's Witnesses, it's actually bad. It's actually damaging. I guess you could argue that it gives some people a community that they wouldn't otherwise have, but I don't agree with that. I think anybody can find a community, right? It's just that the witnesses got to them first and manipulated their loneliness to draw them towards this cult and fill in that community vibe, right? And I just thought this was a really cool point, that you're not actually helping people by teaching them to like act as subservient slaves to an invisible entity. Like, that's not helping people. That's not going to help a community to teach a sense of helplessness, to blindly obey. In Witness's case, be the governing body, but in his faith, it was probably just more like the Bible, probably a literalistic translation of the Bible. So I don't know. I thought that was pretty cool.
There's everything. I'm signing off on everything you just said. There's a process that takes place, and I'm just going to set it up.
That is a very solid read. Oh no, yeah, it is. It's liberal Duck Dynasty guy in liberal Wally from JW Thoughts. That's funny. Not to presuppose anybody's ideology.
Side of religion entirely to begin with. And that is, you first meet somebody, you don't know anything about them. You and I are just meeting right now. We don't know nothing about each other. We hang out. You and I could end up being best friends. We could definitely go hang out or whatever else. But at some point, we're going to have a disagreement. We're going to have something that we don't see eye to eye on. And if you put that in the context of a church, if you and I are both participating in a church environment and we both have the absolute best intentions, what we want to be are servants that help other people, guide them both in the secular life, and maybe give them some pearls of wisdom that we've gleaned while getting more pearls of wisdom from them, because we're looking at a community and this is what our view of Christ is like. That works out great right up until the moment where there's some point of doctrine that is incredibly important to one of us, but not the other.
Yes.
I thought that was really astute too. Like, the common goal isn't actually helping people broadly. The goal is to perpetuate the religion itself. And so when you like rub up against a doctrinal disagreement, like, then the religion's actually not doing you any good, and it might be preventing you from helping people. I really thought a lot about that after this conversation, like listening to this interview. Great comment from Ice Cream Headache. Yeah, I had never heard of the term of having agency until recently on Mormon stories. Now I hear it a lot. It's a good concept. I guess the JW equivalent is free will. Yeah, well, I think like it's just a concept that you don't hear a lot about as a witness because you don't have it. Like, they don't want to instill in you the idea that, like, yes, you have agency to make your own decisions in life, because you don't really. Like, they don't want you to have that. But yeah, like, that's kind of part of it is, and if you listen to a lot of theist arguments, and I like listening to The Line and some atheist call-in shows sometimes, and a lot of times that is the theist argument is that they're like, well, you don't actually have agency anyway. You just are ignoring the fact that you do believe in God deep down, and you're just angry at God. Like, they'll find some way to strip away your agency. And I think a lot of us find that leaving a cult, which you see in the language of that Watchtower we read earlier. Like, the Watchtower was all like, you could be tricked into leaving the religion. You could be ensnared, and Satan could pull an AI ChatGPT on you and trick you into thinking that the governing body have been named in certain court cases regarding child sexual abuse. That's true, by the way. It's not AI. But, like, that's what they're doing, is they're like, you don't have agency. Like, if you were to leave the group, that would not be your decision. It would be you're being tricked into leaving. And so I think a lot of us, when we leave, get that kind of accusation from our parents or spouses or kids or whoever your witness family is like, well, who tricked you? Where are you getting this from? Where did you hear this stuff that is now in your brain? And, like, I know for me, I was too afraid to look at apostate stuff. I stopped believing before I had done any Google searches. And before Google existed, that's how everybody deconstructed too, by the way. But yes, exactly. Remember, folks, when Jesus encountered opposition, he called them apostates and ran away. By Joel. Yeah. Whatever happened to, like, you know, Paul in front of the Sanhedrin giving a bold witness and Jesus, you know, proudly proclaiming, no, whatever. Yeah. This is one that I feel like I talked about in a video recently. Maybe it was a stream. Witnesses in their propaganda videos will talk about how, like, well, the world wants you to think that you have personal rights, and you might get more concerned about whatever you think your personal rights should be than following the Bible. That's how they frame it. Like, yeah, it's for your own good. Agency and autonomy greater than an independent spirit. Yeah. Wicked naughty. Okay, there was some little bit of it. I think it might be what he says next that I was thinking of playing.
And when we get to that point, it's a reason why there's 1,000 denominations that all identify as Christian. Because somebody at the First Baptist Church got pissed off at somebody else at the First Baptist Church, and they went and started the Second Baptist Church. And
so, no offense to Matt, but I'm going to try and skip towards
the Methodist Church goes on. Oh, of course there's going to be conflict. The devil's coming at us. You know, we're doing God's work. Things are going to be a little difficult. And yet everything about it feels right. And then something flips one day, which I'm getting back to what you said a minute ago. And that is that all of a sudden, this message that felt good, that we believed was good, we start to see actual problems in it. Because when the message is delivered and you're supposed to know by their fruit, and you see strife and disagreement in the church and people, and backstabbing and somebody committing adultery in the church or, taking money or not doing the ministry stuff at all. You see that we're all just people. And so why on earth would we continue spreading a message that contains more than what we can demonstrate to be real?
Okay, so this is great. Matt Deloney was cooking on this one. I think that this is really important when it comes to the question that comes up constantly for probably everybody who's ever left a high control group, which is like, how can I get my family or friends or whoever out of the religion? Like, how can I wake them up or get them to think? And I think that is the shitty part of it is more about feelings. Like, it feels right, it feels true, and it feels good. Like, at no point, like, for the most part, as a Jehovah's Witness, like, I would feel sad sometimes, right? But I was trained to contextualize those in terms of, like, okay, well, this is because I sinned and I'm not receiving God's Spirit, or like I'm being tempted by Satan, or whatever. This is time and unforeseen occurrence, their favorite scripture. So I think the reality is you can't really wake people up, because they have to reach a point where they are starting to, like, hear that thing in their head where it's like, wait a minute, saying this doesn't feel as good as it used to. Like, saying this little aphorism and quoting this scripture, I am now seeing the problems there, or I have a sneaking suspicion that I don't know how to articulate that. Yeah, I don't know how to articulate that. You got to get to that point before you're ready to deconstruct. I just accidentally said a word with a twang. So I think that's really interesting. Yeah, the facts don't care about your feelings. Like, that's why that argument is fucking stupid. Like, that's just wrong. Most people's entire ideology is not based around a cold, hard analysis of the facts. Like, it is based around, like, a combination of reality and what, and what we feel. That's not even wrong necessarily. Like, you can make arguments with emotion that are also factual, but I think the truth is, like, people are religious because they want to be, because they like it. And, like, my dad, I have to accept the fact that, like, he just really likes being a witness. Like, it makes him feel good. That's where he gets fulfillment out of his life. And it, like, until he gets to a point where it stops giving him fulfillment, or it starts making him feel bad, or gives him that weird little feeling, like, that's not going to change. But I had just never really heard somebody put it like that. Shabibo and Jordy Portenson. We haven't talked about Jordan Peterson on the channel in a minute, have we? Woke moralists? Sorry, this isn't a very good Jordan Peterson. The tricky thing with Jordan is that he's sort of like, he is definitely Kermit the Frog, but he's also Canadian. And he's also a bit more raspy because he's been on a exclusively beef and tomato juice diet and living alone in a shed with his daughter in the mountains for 47 consecutive weeks, hopefully to match the amount of time that Noah spent in the flood, which was real, by the way. Sort of. Because what is real? And what is a flood? Oh, I lost him. I lost Jordan.
Yeah.
So
I definitely saw a lot of that.
How long ago did you start finding your way out?
Yeah, I know they do. Here's why JWs and exJWs love Jordan Peterson. Because Jordan Peterson is very much like the Watchtower publications. Used to be, I think. Like, now they really don't bother with like being wordy, but if you read like the old Watchtower publications, like they're very verbose, but they say nothing. Like that's a lot of what I like to do on my channel, is just pointing out the fact that like they're really saying nothing with their talk. Like they're just not even saying anything of substance. That's what Jordan Peterson's famous for, is his his word salads. And interestingly, Matt Dillahunty is only a couple people to debate Jordan Peterson and kind of get something out of that conversation. And then recently, Alex O'Connor had a very interesting debate with him, where he got Jordan Peterson to admit that he believes in the literal resurrection of Jesus Christ. Like, he believes that's true. And he's always been very wishy-washy on whether, to the extent that he believes in the Bible and stuff. But I think they like it because he uses so many words that it sounds profound. But when you strip, but it's actually a bunch of self-contradictory, not understandable, emotional feeling nonsense. Like, he has a lot of moral clarity about things that he definitely doesn't believe in. Like, he'll be like, that's wrong. Like, if you believe in climate change, well, what do we believe by climate? What do we believe by change? And what do we mean by is? Which I know you didn't say, but if you did, I would have said that part. But if you think that climate means everything, and if we make legislation, then it will change everything, that's wrong. Like, he'll say this stuff is definitely wrong, or right, but he'll like rarely ever affirm anything. And that makes it seem like it's unbiased, because he's like very rarely affirming something. He's just always like making moral judgments about things that he thinks are bad and then talking around his real beliefs. I don't know. And that's kind of what like Watchtower does a lot. They do a lot of like verbal juggling to try and put a thought in your head. I think that's why he is appealing. He's undeniably entertaining to watch. I mean, I obviously like listening to him in some perverse way, but I think he's a complete charlatan. And, not that anybody asked, really.
2014, 10 years ago.
Okay, so this is, I know I keep on saying this, but Durante talks more about that feeling of like deconstructing, and like a lot of things in this conversation, he just said it in a way that I hadn't heard it expressed before, and it got me excited. So that's why I'm trying to find this part. But I think it's resulted in a good discussion, and at the very least, a couple solid JP bits.
Was literally during the Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown fiasco. I watched a lot of people in the urban church take advantage of the sensationalization of it with no real intention of getting involved and finding any type of answers. And that was heartbreaking for me. So it definitely, if I wasn't disillusioned before, I was definitely disillusioned then. But I often explain to people that my whole relationship with Christianity was a deconstruction journey. The whole time I was a part of the faith, I was looking for a reason to believe the faith while taking it on faith, you know?
Okay, so this is the first like mic drop moment that blew my mind. Like, I had never heard anybody say this before, but this is so interesting. I think that he's onto something. Like, his entire faith journey was a deconstruction journey because he is actively trying to believe things. The way I interpret that is like, yeah, you're constantly trying to have faith in the thing, right? And that means like when you start to have a doubt or a question, like you're trying to kind of, for lack of a better word, like deconstruct that in your head. And so in a sense, like, you're kind of deconstructing your faith while you're in it a lot. And that was just an interesting perspective. I don't think I really heard before.
Oh, and I think that's an interesting dynamic, because most people think like, no, when you become a Christian, you believe everything. And that just wasn't the case for me. I wanted to believe everything. But
I do have them on as guests. I just have the complete ability to freeze them in space and time. No, hey, your lips to God's ears. Also, yeah, that is just my opinion. Just one man's opinion on old Jordy. I do think people should clean their bedroom. You know, on that we agree. So anyway, I thought this thing he said about his faith, his journey as a believer being a deconstruction journey, was interesting. Actually, let's hear him say it again, because he said it better than I said it.
It's an interesting thing. I was a part of the faith. I was looking for a reason to believe the faith while taking it on faith, you know? And I think that's an interesting dynamic, because most people think like, no, when you become a Christian, you believe everything. And that just wasn't the case for me. I wanted to believe everything. But I also wanted that evidence, even if that evidence just would have been God speaking to me, you know, just saying, hey, I'm real. So I spent those 20 plus years looking for God. And that whole time, it was actually a deconstruction process, because there were things that the first 10 years of my ministry, I was a healing evangelist. I was a person who cast out devils. And then I shifted away from that, because I realized like, oh, God isn't really doing these things. And in most cases, this is kind of placebo effect that people are getting off of these neurological impulses that they're experiencing during these services. And it's
sorry, I paused a little too early.
Temporary. It's almost like a misdirection thing. If you have a headache and I hit you in your back, your head is going to temporarily stop hurting.
Okay, so first of all, I need to go. I didn't realize it. Opinion. That's interesting. Fascinating. Okay, so I hadn't... there's a lot of cool things about this. First of all, I just want to watch his channel and find where he talks about, like, oh my God, exorcising demons. Not good, since I'm literally writing an exorcism story. And I was like, unpossessed? What do you say? Exorcism. That's crazy. But, so that's kind of interesting that he, like, realized that what he was doing had a placebo effect, and that it wasn't really God doing that stuff. I've definitely heard, like, exJW elders say that. They're like, wait a minute. All the stuff that I thought was God is actually just, like, you can see the human politics behind it. Like, it's not actually God. I thought that was kind of interesting. But also just, like, yeah, the idea that his faith involved him deconstructing his faith because he really tried to believe, because he really wanted to believe it. And that is, I've been trying to figure out that question of, like, did I really believe it? And so I've tried to take a couple stabs at videos at it and haven't landed on one I quite like yet. But I think that's kind of where I've landed on it, is like, I definitely wanted to believe it and tried to believe it and acted as if I believe it. And that's close enough to me. Like, and there were definitely times when I did. And just in my head was like, that was God that did that. That was Jehovah. But as H. Shatter pointed out, this was Ice Cream Headache. Part of it is JWs are trained to deconstruct every other religion. You're just not supposed to turn it against your own religion. And I think, yeah, like, when you already think that, like, 99% of other religions are fake, it's when you leave, there's not a whole lot left. But yeah, you are taught to look at the Bible in a critical way, kind of, like, just to disprove what witnesses would call false religious doctrines. So yeah, you kind of have little skills that you're developing that end up helping you develop, to deconstruct your faith. But it has to have that emotional component too. That's why I don't think just like having a perfect list of scriptures that disproves a thing. Like, unfortunately, I like seeing that stuff, and it's good to have and for it to exist and to reaffirm for those of us who, you know, leave and then start getting like that feeling like, well, should I go back? What if I was wrong? Like, it's good to have that stuff, but I don't think that's usually what initially flips people's brain. I think it is the emotional component.
So, like, we'd have these moments with people, but then I started feeling really bad for the people who didn't get healed. And so I shifted away from that. And so I spent my whole ministry shifting away from things that I thought were true. And then by the end, it was just like listen, anything that's happened in your life, you had to make happen. Like you're spending your whole life giving credit away and then begging this God to finally approve you. And it was wreaking havoc on my mental health and just the way that I engaged in the world. And it was horrible. So 10 years ago, I made the decision to stop pastoring. I still stayed involved in ministry, but I came to the conclusion that.
So I found that interesting. It's like you're trying to believe, but little parts of it fall away and eventually there's nothing left. I found that very relatable. There's just one part where he's talking about something that really felt like it tied in nicely with the thing we've been talking about on the channel lately, which is like the kind of play acting, cosplay aspect of being in a cult. Like the fact that elders are kind of pretending to be cops and robbers, and like they're doing some of the things that tropes wise you associate with a judicial process, because they're robbed of actual, I don't know, like traditional success in the world. So they kind of mimic those systems in the religion to make the men feel powerful. There is a play acting part of it where elders adopt a certain tone when they're in a judicial committee or when they're shepherding someone. They put on a certain outfit, use a certain tone of voice and certain facial expressions, and they say certain things. Like there's an element of it that's performative. And they say something about that I thought was cool. But I know we're coming up on 3 hours, which I think is as long as any stream should probably ever be.
Because everybody thinks you're nuts when you say that. And also, evidently, nobody ever hears. There are people who may hear or think they hear an audible voice. But when we put that to the test.
Oh, okay. I think this is actually what we're getting into a little bit. Is like people who heard God. Now that I would be really interested in talking to somebody who, I don't know, either is now an atheist or just has a different perspective on their faith or something. But like people who think that they talk to God, that's a really weird thing. Like if that happened to you, I think maybe I talked about this with Heliocentric, but like if you claimed to have a conversation with God or Jesus as a witness, you would be treated like a complete weirdo. People would be like, no, you're going crazy. That's not how it works. That's not how the Force works. But they talk about this in a way that I thought was kind of interesting.
But I came to the conclusion that I really no longer believe this, and I can't in integrity still get up in the pulpit and tell these people that I believe this is the right way. When not only do I not believe it's the right way, I actually believe that this advice is detrimental and it is actually robbing you of your own capacity.
Yes, some of it.
I think that's what shifts people from physically out, mentally in, to physically out, mentally out, by the way, is like a lot of people are like, well, I'm not a witness, but it's not so bad. And they're at least doing their best and teaching people good qualities and they live a good life, like blah, blah, blah. And I think like the reason why people speak out about witnesses and high control groups is when they hit that point where they're like, wait, no, actually this is detrimental, which I find interesting. But I think this is where they start getting into something that I thought was kind of interesting, which was like when pastors realize that thoughts that they're having are not actually from God, but just their own thoughts. This is something that they start talking about.
It seems kind of.
By the way, chat, how are we doing? Are we enjoying this, or should I switch to the other little interview clip I wanted to show that was making me think about things? Sound off.
Performative. I was a sincere believer for a number of years.
He said the magic word.
I actually believe that this advice is detrimental and it is actually robbing you of your own capacity.
Yes, some of it seems kind of performative. I was a sincere believer for a number of years, and then I was probably a believer just giving lip service to it. You know, when I left home at 18 and joined the Navy, I didn't give a shit about Jesus or church or religion. I still believed, but it was like, I'm invincible. I'm young. I'm going to go out and, I don't need that. It was me also running away from what I thought.
I forgot to mention there's also evidently a dog. So shout out to the dog. Sorry, I just took my camera off because I very cringily just
was a calling to the ministry. I was terrified of it. I was terrified of public speaking. I didn't want anything to do with it. And that's why later on I felt like God was punishing me. But in this performative aspect
right now, I don't know what this is.
If you have a couple believers who are in private, and I've had this conversation with Jerry and other ex-pastor friends of mine, if you have two honest believers in a conversation in private where nobody else can hear, they will admit to each other their doubts because they think that will help strengthen each other. And they will acknowledge that, when I say God speaks to me, I don't mean I hear an actual voice. I don't mean I'm hearing an actual message. I mean, I'm getting this impression that I feel is consistent with what God wants. And then you move it a step forward. And now you take that same person with their private admissions to another believer, put them up in the pulpit on Sunday, and all of a sudden the honesty drips away a little bit, and it's God spoke to me and delivered a message to me, and here and it's stated with that authority.
Oh my God. I thought this was so smart. Okay, this is great. So one of my okay, hang on. Sorry. I'm setting aside your comment, Parody, because I see a media suggestion of some kind. Okay, so I love this. I had never thought about this, but at least in those terms, but like something that I loved as a witness, so those baseball road trips that I mentioned earlier, it would be me and my dad and like our close guy friends who were obviously mostly other elders and servants. My dad was an elder, I was a servant. And one of the most wonderful things about those trips is that like all of the artifice of the religion was stripped away, and we would have really honest conversations about like what we believe, like little doubts and things. They would talk, and sometimes they would let their guard down and talk about it in front of me and like my servant friend who like we're not technically elders, but we were like cool enough and like we were definitely gonna be elders, so it was probably fine for us to know this. They would talk about the humanity of the religion and just little things, just little human elements, little doubts, little issues, in a way that I think for a long time made me feel like I was in a religion that did not have anything to hide. What I started to appreciate was that a lot of people did not have that same experience that I was having. And they thought the elders really were just like appointed by God directly and were being directed by Holy Spirit and totally believed everything they were saying. You know what I mean? But I knew that behind the scenes, like elders would have really frank conversations about stuff. That was an important part of my own faith journey and maybe part of why I stayed in for a long time, but I hadn't really unpacked that too much. So I appreciated Matt talking about that. I thought that was super cool. And also, like, to continue to indulge this fucking book that I'm writing, like, that's a key element of Not a Cult, right? The exorcism story is the Bethelite who's going to investigate the exorcism stays with an older couple who has, like, opened up their homes, right? So he's, like, a city boy coming from Brooklyn, Bethel to stay with them, and he gets to have some of these heart-to-heart conversations throughout the book where they're able to have some, like, frank conversations about the nature of faith. Like, very Midnight Mass, right? I really like in fiction when two characters can just sit down and talk about their shit. And so I hadn't really thought about the fact that, like, for people in church leadership positions, that is something that keeps them in. And the way Matt puts it is, like, they just do this and they let their guard down and talk about these things honestly because it builds them up, right? Like it encourages them, like, oh, we're going through the same thing. We're all kind of performing this same little play together. And I think that is maybe what it is to be an elder. I've been just thinking about this a lot with the leaked elder training videos and just how strange it is. And I think Matt kind of cracked it there. It's the fact that they have this private ability to be able to be a little bit more open about their faith than probably other Jehovah's Witnesses are. That's like a privilege that they have, to use their parlance, that not other people recognize, and maybe why it's more rare for people in higher leadership positions to leave. And I think you just multiply that times a million when you get up the corporate hierarchy of a cult. And it's why it's rare for people like a governing body member of Jehovah's Witnesses, certainly, but also like one of the miscavages to leave Scientology, or Alex Mack to leave Nexium, like, which I don't know. Has she actually denounced all that shit? I think she did, right? I think she kind of released some kind of statement. Those people who are higher up have more open conversations about the flaws of the religion and the faith itself than people lower on the ladder. Because people who are lower on the ladder are scared of being punished by people higher on the ladder. I just never really thought about that. I thought that was really cool, and I think that these two guys seem
then
chill. I think
you
they
get
should
people
talk
calling
more
into
often. It
shows
makes me
like
think
this,
about
and
stuff.
I've asked, anybody who thinks they're getting message from God, my questions are always the same. Do you actually hear an audible voice, or is it internal? Is it
okay? I want to get to what he says next.
Everybody thinks you're nuts when you say that, and also, evidently, nobody ever hears. There are people who
he's saying that like pretty much nobody ever says that God speaking to them is literally hearing a voice speaking to them. Like almost nobody actually admits to that, because most people accept that if you are really hearing a voice with no visible source, that you might have a brain problem. And so most people will be like, well, no. And like, I know what this means. Like, it's what Jehovah's Witnesses do. Like, they contextualize speaking to Jehovah as praying and reading the Bible as listening. And so like you interpreting or intuiting like, ooh, the fact that I read this verse on this day and this verse is making me think this thing is divine inspiration. But that would be like me saying like that, oh wow, I've been thinking a lot about the subject matter of this video that I'm now watching, and so clearly this video is a gift from my personal God and Savior, Shiborb, who I haven't talked about before, but he's a big part of my life, Shiborb. Anyway.
Who may hear or think they hear. Okay.
Yes.
If God wants you to talk to me, if God wants you to present a case, if God wants you to tell your story, if God wants, that's what he really want to show. That pulpit, being honest.
Durante talks about the performative thing too. That's what I'm trying to
nothing. It's 20 years ministry and
Matt, cool it.
And there are things that you
know that I'm hosting a live stream and didn't prepare
concept.
And pull the clip.
What we have is
time.
different, so we start
So now I'm skipping
throughout the entire
it like a complete amateur.
One of the biggest things that started happening that is I started paying attention in my counseling sessions with my members, because I had members who, like you said, on Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights were like, hey, the Lord spoke to me, and they're getting up in front of church and they're really audacious, authoritative, and very.
Damn, this is such a great point. We won't get into this, but they talk later on about just the amount of work that people who used to be pastors do. I think something that Durante Lamar says at the end is like, I think some of like the work he does, like activism wise, is like helping former pastors who lose their faith, like translate the work that they did into like a resume. And I was like, oh my God, that's a genius idea for something that an exJW activist could do to help like former Bethelites, full-time pioneers, whatever. Like, I would request those services, please. Like, can you please help me put my witness resume stuff on a resume? Because one of the main reasons why I don't have that much job experience is like I have worked, a job, and then, done the rest of what I'm doing is for the church or for the organization, right? Skylar, it's at the top of the screen, you silly. It's conversation with an ex-pastor. Sorry, conversation. Well, okay. In fairness, I couldn't even read it correctly, so I will say what the title of the video is: Conversation with ex-pastor Durante Lamar on his deconstruction. And this is on Matt Dillahunty's YouTube channel. Their full episode of The Line is on the live feed. I think I'm still working my way through it, but it's very good, obviously.
Very.
And the link to Durante's channel is in the description of that video. I'll update the description of this afterwards with links to all of this stuff, so you can watch.
Very concrete in these experiences that they're having, that I know God is speaking to me and he's giving me this word. But these same members, when I was counseling,
yes, exactly,
they're like, Pastor, why doesn't God speak to me? And so that became really hard for me to reconcile, because I'm like, okay, which version of you do I believe? Do I believe the version of you that is here on Sundays saying God is speaking to me? Or do I believe the version of you that's in my office on Tuesday saying, Pastor, why doesn't God speak to me? And then I realized for the first time, like, and that was around 2012, that for the first time, my members are under the same pressure to pretend that I am. And that like kind of shook me a little bit, because it's like, because at first I felt mad. I'm not even gonna lie. I kind of felt like that righteous indignation. Like, why would you pretend? Why would you lie? And then it became like, well, dude, what have you been doing? And why have you been doing it? You've been doing it to protect this idea of God. You've been doing it to protect this idea that you have this relationship with God. And so to bring that back around to the question, by the time 2000.
Yeah, this is great. I thought this was really interesting. The like, which version of you do I believe? That's a really interesting. I think that he is saying this in regards to other pastors who would come to him, but it kind of makes me think about the fact that like elders, when they're getting like a lesser member is coming to them for advice, like I wasn't an elder, but I was just trying to think of an example, and this is one, right? Of like, I had a Bible study. It was the only real progressive Bible study I had as a witness, and it was somebody who was sort of raised a witness, but was in our hall because he was going to the nearby university, and his mom was like, okay, I'll let you go to college, but you have to go to meetings and do a Bible study. So I was doing the Bible study, and you know, we reached a point where I had to ask him like, well, why haven't you gotten baptized? You know, because we just finished this book. And he said it was because of masturbation, because he couldn't stop masturbating. And he had talked to some elders about it, and they said that it was okay, that wouldn't disqualify him from getting baptized, but it bothered him too much. And like, that made me think like, well, okay, so this is just a person who doesn't yet know that everybody is lying. That part of being a witness is that you kind of just have to do that anyway and lie about it and then pray for forgiveness and feel secretly ashamed all the time. Like, I'm glad that the elders told him that he didn't have to not masturbate to get baptized, but obviously there's going to be nothing but shame like in terms of talking about that stuff at all the meetings. Otherwise my Bible study wouldn't have felt bad about it to begin with. And so like that kind of difference, that's what what Durante was saying made me think of like, when he knows that pastors, when they say God is speaking to me, Durante knew that they didn't mean that God is like, hey, what's up, dude? Here's what you should talk about on Sunday. Like, no, Durante knows that they are like using kind of like poetic language to interpret just thoughts that they have in their brain and saying that it's God speaking to them. But other members don't know, like people lower on the ladder don't necessarily know that that's what the leadership is doing, that like they're kind of pretending and expecting you to pretend. Does that make any sense? Did I connect those threads enough? Okay, I couldn't actually fucking find the part of this that I was even thinking of, but I think we got it. Oh, wow. John Green is talking about Pizzamas. Incredible. Okay, so the other part of this was... I'm going to stop sharing this for a second. Sorry. I said I was going to share 2 clips, and I'll be damned if I don't share it. It was another interview, but this one really had nothing to do with witnesses. Like, it doesn't have anything to do with religion at all specifically. But I am going to have to see if I can find the specific part, because it's a very long interview. Right, I think it's pretty close. I'm pulling up a transcript and searching. Okay. So this is an interview that... share my screen here. When we get late in the stream, we get sloppy and political, folks. Unlike the razor sharp first part of this stream that stayed on task the entire time. Okay, so this interview is legitimately one of the best interviews I've heard. And I got to be honest with you, I'm not a particularly big fan of Ari Melber specifically. Like, I don't really have any thoughts on that guy. But I had not heard this guy, this historian, Yuval Harari. I heard of his books, but I don't know. Didn't know anything about this guy. But I had just seen people saying that this was a good interview, that people should watch it. But he's writing a book basically about information and the concept of, like, misinformation and how misinformation has evolved throughout the centuries. So, and don't worry, like, whatever your political denomination is, like, it doesn't really matter to, like, enjoy this interview. Like, he's going to talk about misinformation on both sides of the political aisle, blah, blah, blah. That's not really the point. But he starts talking about what truth is. And this little section here, I thought, you know, considering that most of us here in chat came from a religion that called itself the truth as shorthand, you know, my ears perked up.
World is not truth.
The election.
Well, the key thing to realize about information is that information isn't truth. Most information in the world is not truth because the truth is a very costly and rare kind of information. This kind of very naive thinking that if we just flood the world with more and more information, the truth will float up. It won't. It will sink to the bottom. If you want to write a true story, you need to do a lot of research. It takes time, energy, money, whereas fictions and delusions and conspiracy theories, you just write whatever you want. The truth also has another problem, which is that it tends to be complicated because reality is complicated.
Okay, so just for the first part of his answer, that's immediately really interesting, that, like, truth is different from information because not all information is good information, you know. But it's not just like a nitpicky point he's making. It's like, I thought that was a good way of thinking about it. Like, if you wanted to write a true story, like write a historical account of a true thing that happened, you have to do a lot of research. You know that fucking weird documentary, that fake intellectual documentary that Witnesses made for the convention, where a guy goes to a museum and looks at tablets? I don't know if he's looking at, like, old bits of the Dead Sea Scrolls or whatever, but you know, in order to do research, to even pretend to look like it for a cult propaganda video, they had to, like, travel to a museum and talk to experts, right? So what he's saying is, like, the truth is, like, costly, rare, and now he's saying that, like, it's complicated too. Like, things that are actually true are not necessarily simple. And I thought, I'm gonna rewind just a second so he can set this up again. But that, I think, is a key, just fundamental underlying assumption of Jehovah's Witnesses, certainly, but all high control groups that claim to have the truth. That truth is very simple, right? The baseline of it is simple. The thing that they can fall back on as an aphorism, like, well, Jehovah's kingdom, Jehovah's going to fix all this, like little things like that. The truth about, like, God is just allowing wickedness temporarily for a little bit, and then he's going to fix it and bring all the dead people back to life and kill Satan. Like, that's the truth. Now, the lies in support of that truth can be as complicated as possible. But the truth itself, by witness definition, should be very simple. And that's why they like to keep their language very simple in the publication, supposedly. But a lot of people do this. They're like they'll just see an argument, and the fact that it is a long argument, or that you might have to read a book to understand something, the fact that you might not be able to just understand how vaccines work yourself as some random asshole who's never studied fucking chemicals, vaccine, medicine, the human body, anything, and know more about it. You know, regardless of whatever your stance is about that, like, politically, whatever, like, there is a kind of base assumption a lot of people have that they should just be able to understand stuff that's true because it should be simple. And, like, I don't know. I personally know that I'm a fucking idiot and don't understand a whole lot.
Is that it tends to be complicated because reality is complicated, whereas fiction can be as simple as you would like it to be. And people usually prefer simple theories, simple stories over the complicated ones. And the last point is that the truth tends sometimes to be painful, to be unattractive. Whether it's the truth about me personally and my life and relationships, or the truth about the history of a nation, there are often dark chapters there that we don't want to acknowledge. And fiction, you can make it as attractive, as pleasant as you would like it to be. So because the truth is costly and complicated and sometimes painful, if we don't invest in institutions, in mechanisms to help the truth float up, then we will be flooded with junk information and fake news and conspiracy theories.
Okay, so that was the clip. I thought that was so, just an incredible quote all around. This whole conversation is really, really worth watching. I've listened to a lot of whatever podcast interviews over the years. This is great. Ari Melber asks really good questions and pushes them on some things. But just for our purposes as people who are thinking about cults and conspiracy theories and dealing with our family members and stuff, that is the underlying assumption, is that the truth is simple. And why are you telling me that I should read Crisis of Conscience? That's a whole fucking book. What? I gotta read a whole chart to understand why the organization's wrong about 607? Look, they just have a little cartoon picture timeline in a magazine. He just described the entire internet, right? But I think that this, I don't know, he just kind of summed it all up. That is the challenge that is faced by people who are trying to correct misinformation, or what apostates say a lot is the truth about the truth, because witnesses call themselves the truth. If you ever look at witness doctrines, they're totally convoluted and insane, but those are just insane explorations to get around addressing the conflict with their core simple belief, which is that Jesus rose in 1914 or whatever it is. And I think part of the problem that, yes, the waking up lots of times happens because you let go of the absolutes and consider something else. Yeah. This is why I'm a really big fan of ContraPoints, and I don't want to say this in a way that's virtue signaling, for lack of a better term, but one of the reasons why I talk about trans rights a lot on the channel when I'm not trans myself is first of all, I do think it's important, but also hearing Natalie Wynn, ContraPoints, deconstruct gender, just something that had always been the most obvious binary in my entire life as a witness. It's a patriarchal organization. There's men and women, that's it. And so hearing just so much thought and complexity put into this one single idea that I had always taken for granted, that really unlocked a lot for me in my brain, and thinking oh wow, this is not simple at all. Why did I ever think it? It's not like I ever researched it or studied it. I just figured it was simple because that's just what I thought and had heard. So I think the trap that it's easy to fall into just generally in life is thinking that you've got a really good handle on something, and just assuming you know more about something than you do. I definitely fall into that. I've gotten a lot of stuff wrong on the channel over the years, but anyway, I thought that was really, it's a cool interview all around. I was about to end, but you know what? We've got Wasabi, who has an interesting question. What's up, Wasabi? Do you also believe in a paradise hub? I mean, no, definitely not. I don't believe in the Bible at all. I don't know. So in any Jehovah's Witness conception of that phrase, no, I don't believe that. I think it's possible to vastly improve the conditions of the world. But dead people coming back to life and restoring the earth to a paradise, and creating worship centers for Jehovah's Witnesses, and the animals all eat straw because lions' teeth don't have to eat meat anymore, so they're just going to use their sharp teeth to eat salad. No, I don't believe in that. Well, gang, we did it. I want to do a quick cool down with my homies here. mostly because I think Christina's taking a nap, and so I'm just going to be kind of doing nothing anyway. What I'm really doing at this point is just procrastinating working on actual video related stuff. First of all, I probably will post a video this week in some form. So look forward to that, or not. What? I'm not going to make you look forward to it. Just if you look forward to it, then you do. What am I even fucking talking about anymore? I just forgot what I was trying to pull up on my computer. I wanted to, for our cooldown, which is what I'm going to now call the end of these broadcasts. Usually I like to talk about whatever creative bullshit I'm working on, vis-a-vis the channel and so forth. So I'm going to, let's see. I just want to pull up what I was working on this morning, which was some drawings. Oh my god, Bear Woody, what the fuck? Okay, so you're talking about The Substance. It's awesome. Okay, so this is a movie called The Substance. Is it in theaters only? We are so bad about going to the movies lately. There's a lot of stuff that's come out that I've wanted to see. I just haven't. Like, I wanted to see the new Alien movie and Deadpool and Wolverine, and I haven't seen those. We did see something recently. I don't remember what it was. What did we even see in theaters? I remember liking whatever we saw, but I don't know what it was. Oh, honestly, I think the last movie I saw in theaters might have been Furiosa. And by the way, I rewatched that movie recently, and it still fucking rules. Okay, here's what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm really excited for Alien Romulus. I think that director who did it is good. I personally thought, like, I've pretty much really liked all the Alien movies I saw, except for the one that's in a prison. I think Fincher directed weirdly, right? That one's kind of famously not very good. But anyway, I've been working on stuff specifically related to just kind of like nerdy pop culture fandom that I'm into and making videos about that. And so I've been thinking a lot about Lost, which is my favorite show. And I've been wanting to make videos about it for years and years. But for some reason, this morning, I just started doodling in my sketchbook. And I was like, wouldn't it be fun to reimagine Lost characters as kids in a kid's cartoon? So that's what you're seeing here. I guess this doesn't really make sense unless you've seen Lost, but the character designs are still cute. Thanks to Matt Wilshire, by the way, for $2 super chat. Very excited. Ooh, I meant to say, I really liked Prometheus a lot. I think I saw, I don't know why it happened this way, but like I watched the very first Alien and then I immediately watched Prometheus. I don't know why that was, but I think that the first Alien is probably still my favorite in terms of all of the movies, but man, I thought Prometheus was so good. I understand on some level why people don't like it, but honestly, not really. And I thought Covenant was good. Like, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. Okay, so, oh yeah, I need to watch Shogun, because I hear, yeah, the guy who plays Dogen, thank you very much, he has a name. So there's young John, in Kid Lost, there's young John, who I think I need to rethink this character design that I'm doing for no reason, but he looks a little too much just like adult John, but shorter. And then Saeed, I don't know, I couldn't figure out, I'm not good at drawing hair, or anything really, generally speaking, definitely not legs and hands, but I don't know. That was my idea for Saeed. He's holding a radio. Now this I did like. I liked this idea. Charlie's obviously just Charlie. He's got a distinct head shape, so it's easy to get his essence. Claire is weird, because Claire is a pregnant Australian woman in the show, and so I was like, okay, what if she just has an egg, like, that kids have to have for, like those incubator projects where, like, okay, you got to keep an egg alive. I've never did that in school, but I've seen it in school, like, sitcoms. Seen it in cartoons. And this is a cartoon. Damn, the cropping on this is fucking terrible, but the idea is that this is Ben Linus. Why did it crop it like this? Why, SpongeBob? Why? I must have a better version of this picture. But I don't. Well, I'll circle back to that one. Okay, so my idea is that he's maybe got like cancer, like he's got like a shaved head, you know, for that reason. And he comes to the island, still can be in a wheelchair and everything. But also, I don't know, shaved head, maybe he's a skinhead. I guess he could just look like the actual young Locke in the flashbacks. But that's not as fun. Damn it, that drawing of Ben is cute. Okay, so the idea was to draw Jin and Sun as anime characters, but I'm not very good at drawing anime characters, so I don't know if that really worked out. Damn it, the cropping on this one's bad too. Let me see if I can find a better one, because I thought this was good. Just showing you my cartoons. I don't know if it's coming through at all, but I am slightly stoned. Okay, here's better cropping. Me to the elders, don't tell me what I can't do. Yeah, exactly. There's my guy. I like the way Ben Linus turned out. I thought that turned out pretty good. And Jack and Locke looking down the hatch. Where's the one of... oh, that's Peach. Okay, this is a pretty good one. This is Locke banging on the hatch, but using, like, the Charlie Brown crying pose. And whatever's happening with that bottom one. Yeah. So I guess that's it, right? Well, I drew another one, but I guess I didn't take a picture of it. Okay, well, so I drew some cartoons this morning. That's what I was working on. Hard at work drawing cartoons for no real reason. You had the thoughts for Saeed? Yeah, I did too. Okay, terminally Pee-me? He totally is. That's actually a great description of Ben. He's a real believer. But he's haughty. What about me, he says to his deity. Alright, guys, we did it. Let's do something and watch this weird YouTube poop edit. Was it even funny? I don't know. I wasn't even really paying attention to the intro. But let's watch it one last time to close things out.
Watch the following video.
I grew up in a family, just enjoyed everything, so I just felt that I was Hebrew. One day, a woman came to my door, very Jewish. How is that possible? It's never happened. And said, do you know you could live forever? So I looked at her and I said, oh. And that's when she said, well, Jehovah. I said, Yud Hey Vav Hey. There were no vowel points. I couldn't pronounce it, but I knew Yeshua Mashiach. Mashiach, I know, means, you know, Yeshua. And she said, well, that was Jesus. And then she gave me a list of Jesus. And then the clincher was, of course, she gave me a Jehovah list. So it answered the question. It can't be an accident. I, insignificant me, can die. I mean, that's special. So I decided die. Look I'm so worn out now. I'm 93 years old, I'm 59 years healthy, and I can still cook chicken soup with matzo balls, matzo balls. What can I tell you? I absolutely love matzo balls. As long as I have matzo balls and me, I'm gonna shit.